Absent. Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Member Hazlitt.
Here.
Member Clark.
Here.
Member Pruitt. Absent. And will the recorder note that Member Benars and Member Berger have just arrived? And I will also just take a moment to remind the members that when you are speaking, to speak right into your microphone so you can be heard on CCTV. And also, I forgot to remind you last week as well, if you are speaking near your microphone, it can be heard outside. So if you do not intend for it to be heard, for everyone, use the mute button on your microphone or just turn your microphone away from you. So just a heads up about that. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting from April 15th.
So moved. Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Then we'll get back to the motion.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I apologize about that. All right, so we had a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Was that Member Benars? And seconded by?
Tyler Clark.
Member Clark? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll now hear from Ms. Jacobs about the handout material for the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Chair Dickey, and welcome members of the Budget Committee. I'm Kelly Jacobs, the city's budget officer. You have 4 items of handouts on your tables, or in your agenda packet this evening. 1 item was on your table. The first item in your handout materials is the summary of Budget Committee actions through April 15th. And this is a report that will be reoccurring on each of your agendas, and we will keep you updated in regard to the status of activities of the Budget Committee. The report this evening really just highlights the requests for information that were made at the April 15th meeting, and 2 of those information requests have been fulfilled and are included in your agenda packets this evening. And in fact, one of those items is the second item of handout materials. It is a memorandum from the Public Works Department regarding private versus public maintenance paving cost comparison, and it's a comparison from October 19th, 2010, and this information was requested at the April 15th meeting. The third item of handout materials is a graffiti abatement program report, also requested at the April 15th meeting, and I won't review that report with you. I'll allow the Chief Moore to do that when he provides his department's budget presentation. The final handout material is the one action item that I will need approval of errata corrections. Errata report number 2 provides corrections to books 1 and 2 of the proposed budget. Very briefly, the city officials and org chart pages in books 1 and 2 were incorrect. We actually had provided you the Urban Renewal Agency pages, and that's quite incorrect, and so with this errata, we are correcting that. Additionally, the other 2 items on the errata really address some no budget impact, but errors that will aid in their correction. It'll aid in comprehension for all of you as you review the budgets this evening. A few errors to the fire department's budget pages. We had omitted some program titles. And in the police budget, we actually, this is kind of a long explanation on your staff report this evening in the additions agenda, and it's really around some work that we do, a little manual work that we do to sort of align expenditure line items. They come out of our system one way. We have to do a little additional manual alignment of expenditure line items and personal services. No budget impact with this correction. It just simply aligns things so that you can do a better year-to-year comparison of expenditures and personal services. And with that, I'll need a motion for approval of the errata corrections.
So moved.
Moved by Member Benars. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the errata corrections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, we will move to the review of our general fund revenues by Interim City Manager Casey Duncan.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, Chair Dickey and members of the Budget Committee. Over the course of the next two meetings, you'll be hearing about the various programs and services associated with the general fund, which includes a proposed budget of $132.5 million in total resources and $120.5 million in expenditures. It's my pleasure to begin the evening with an overview of the resources that support general fund services. I want to begin this meeting with a reminder that the general fund has been and will continue to be on the city's watch list. While I strive to be a glass half full individual, I must view this fund through the top half of that glass. There are many unknowns, and we recognize that the assumptions built into the budget will not all hold true. But with that being said, even with the favorable outcome of the PERS lawsuit, we anticipate that this year will be the beginning of a forecasted erosion of beginning working capital, or our fund balance. As demonstrated on this slide, we have a structural imbalance where our revenues do not equal the cost of services. You may hear over the course of department director presentations throughout the coming meetings about additional resources that may increase the effectiveness of the services we provide the community. Unfortunately, constitutional limitations on property tax and low to moderate growth in other presently available revenue sources do not allow for significant enhancements, such as additional fire station staffing. In fact, our financial forecast into the future calls for further reductions in order to maintain general fund solvency. The proposed fiscal year 16 budget provides for some level of stability, addresses some of our capital and technology needs, centralizes common services, ensures compliance with new regulations related to staffing hours and benefits, and will enable us to reassess and reevaluate resources that can be dedicated to carry out council's goals and policy direction. With our current assumptions of $106.8 million in new revenue and expenditures of $110 million, our fund balance could decrease by $3.5 million from $20.6 to $17.1 million by the fiscal year end. This slide shows the various programs supported by the general fund and their proportionate share of the proposed budget. Police and fire services account for more than 55% of the total, or $65.7 million. This is over $5.5 million more than the total amount of anticipated property tax receipts. I will note that the administration category appearing under short-term borrowing in green includes the budgets for the mayor and council, the city manager's office, legal and human resources, and administrative services includes finance, contracts, and procurement. Here you can see the year-to-year increase in total resources, which is a combination of beginning working capital and new revenues. The increase, excluding the amount for short-term loans to the Urban Renewal Agency, is 2.7%. For purposes of my presentation this evening, I've removed the urban renewal borrowing from my calculations in order to more accurately frame the resource comparisons. The projected year-to-year increase in current revenues, excluding fund balance, is 3.6%, and by comparison, we believe the increase in expenditures will be closer to 6.5%. This pie chart demonstrates the resources within the general fund. As you can see, property tax accounts for the largest share, followed by our fund balance, franchise fees, and internal service charges paid for by funds into the general fund for services performed. Our beginning fund balance, more commonly referred to as beginning working capital in the private sector, is maintained near the $20 million level for the third consecutive year. We are projecting a slight decrease of about $400,000 in our beginning fund balance to begin the year, which indicates that the revenues we are receiving are just slightly behind the current cost of providing services. Our fund balance could only be maintained at or near this level if revenue increases were commensurate with the increased cost of doing business, and we continue to experience the contested PERS relief of about $2 million annually. The projected decline in working capital is consistent with the forecast, which also anticipates reductions of about $1.8 million annually in coming fiscal years. There is some positive news regarding general fund revenue, as we are seeing property tax values increase and are losing less to compression. I'll speak about compression on the following slide. Property tax revenues represent 56% of new revenues, and collections are forecasted at just over $60 million. The year-to-year growth in property tax revenue is anticipated to be about 4.2%, and the overall increase is projected at 2.8%, as we anticipate some decline in prior year collections with more property owners becoming current on their taxes. So this slide is a 2-year snapshot of properties in compression, which are highlighted in red. While taxes are paid on a property's assessed value, a voter-approved limitation on property taxes establishes that the taxes collected by governmental agencies cannot exceed $10 per 1,000 of real market value. The permanent tax rate of the city is $5.83, and the governmental rate for Marion County is $10.51. So this means that when the assessed value of a property is 95% or greater of real market value, the taxes are reduced proportionally to all the governmental agencies, and that is called compression. In the current fiscal year, residential properties experienced a real market value growth of over 11%. So going back, this change in real market value created the adequate spread to reduce our compression losses on many properties. As a result, the city is projecting property tax receipts to be higher than the anticipated adoption of the fiscal year 2014-15 budget, and growth in the real market value has allowed growth in tax revenue and relieved some of the losses to compression. Franchise fee revenue represents 13.3% of total resources and 15.8% of new revenues. The increases we're experiencing in franchise fees are derived by electricity, natural gas, and refuse franchises. Much of the projected increase in the overall franchise fees pertains to the solid waste franchise fees and the associated fee, which was recently increased. The increase, however, is going to be transferred this year to the city's transportation fund for street maintenance. State shared revenue represents about 4% of general fund resources and 4.7% of new revenues. We anticipate about a 4% increase in alcohol tax shared revenues, just over $4 million in total. A decline in cigarette taxes of 3% for an estimated total receipt of $197,000, and a 1% decrease in state 911 taxes for total estimated revenues of $736,000. Internal charges represent 10.3% of general fund resources and 12.3% of new revenue. They include the cost allocation for internal services, which benefit all city funds and departments but are housed in the general fund. Services such as legal, human resources, finance, purchasing, information technology, and facilities. Allocated overhead for fiscal year 2016 is $7.5 million, a 2.7% increase over fiscal year 15. Internal charges also include fund-to-fund charges for direct specific services. These fund-to-fund charges have increased by over 50%, primarily due to a couple of changes in the 2016 budget. First, an estimated $1.2 million reimbursement from the Transportation Services Fund for street, tree, and right-of-way maintenance work performed by the Parks Maintenance Division, which now resides within the general fund. This reimbursement revenue is necessitated by the return of parks maintenance to the general fund. For several years prior to the fiscal year 16 budget, the reimbursement revenue flowed in the opposite direction as an expense to the general fund because parks maintenance was maintained in transportation services. And second, fund-to-fund reimbursements have increased with the addition of 3 FTE positions in information technology that are being reimbursed by other city funds. It brings in additional revenue to the general fund of $273,000. Fines and penalties represent a small portion, about 2% of general fund resources and 2.4% of new revenues. With the implementation of new parking technology in the Capitol Mall area, the impact on fine revenue is unknown and the budget remains unchanged. A conservative increase is projected for court fines, and photo red light revenue is continuing to decline as drivers are modifying their behaviors. Transfers include revenue from the Cultural and Tourism Fund to support the maintenance of TOT-eligible parks and landscape areas. License and permit revenue is derived from items such as apartment licenses, fire safety permits, sign permits, and the year-to-year increase equals just over $15,500. In the rent category, an increase in parking meter revenue based upon estimates of the impact of the new technology at the Capitol Mall is offset by the decrease in loan proceeds, which came this fiscal year from the utility fund in order to purchase the new technology. We anticipate lowered grant funding primarily because of the expiration of the Police Department COPS grant in fiscal year 2015 and decreased emergency management grants. With respect to fees for the fees for services category, The rate increase to planning-related fees is somewhat offset by expectations for no growth or a decline in other revenues. Year-to-year changes for these fee types are detailed on page R21 and include fees under the headings of fees for service and other fees. In closing, I'd like to publicly thank our employees who, during these lean years, have been dogged in finding ways to reduce expenses, lean our processes, leverage technology and other available funding sources, and improve efficiencies in order to mitigate the impact of budget reductions on the public. You will hear of some of those successes throughout the coming budget sessions. Our mantra has been and will continue to be to do everything within our power to deliver the best possible service given our available resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for City Manager Casey Duncan? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Casey, how would you characterize your revenue estimate? I mean, you know, optimistic, wildly conservative, unreasonably tight?
Now, that's a very good question. And
I mean, I'll just be honest with you. In watching those revenue projections, I thought they represented an extraordinarily conservative estimation of what's coming in.
yeah. Well, I may disagree with you slightly.
Okay.
In that I believe we've tried to be more accurate this year rather than conservative with our
Okay.
forecasting, especially when you look at the largest piece of that pie being property tax. We've taken a look at compression. We're forecasting out what that's going to do in the future, and try to be more realistic in our expectations, knowing that being too conservative reduces the revenues and therefore may cause us to cut services that don't require reductions at this time if revenues come in. But I also put in the qualifier that we recognize all of our assumptions may not hold true. And I did mention that we're being conservative with the parking meter technology and the revenues derived. And that's just primarily based on the fact that we don't have experience in that area yet, and we know that there is a certain level of debt service that has to be met regardless of what the revenues are.
Well, my concern is exactly what you describe, is that we would be so conservative in revenue estimation that we would be unable to provide certain services that are anticipated or that are really badly needed. And I think each of us probably have services we're concerned about. I'm very concerned about police services in the downtown area right now. And I looked at the property tax estimation, and I've seen other property tax estimations statewide, and our number looked low to me, and I wondered how that is calculated.
So we work with both Marion and Polk County to obtain information related to specific properties, and we've actually become much more sophisticated in how we're forecasting that out rather than just assigning an overall number.
Okay.
And I do feel that we're being more accurate with that 4.2% in the first year. The outlier is the previous year's property tax collection, and it's really hard to get a handle on what's outstanding and what may be collected during that year. But based on our experience, it seems to be that those are starting to go down as we're seeing an increase in current year collections. So if we do have additional property tax revenue, in addition to what we forecasted, I would see that coming more from the prior year collections and the current year collections.
If you saw those collections then go up, at what point would we be made aware of unanticipated revenue that is potentially available, or is the strategy now to assign any additional revenue to decreasing the use of the reserve fund?
The fund balance,
Okay.
yeah. And I can say that I hope our revenues come in much higher than what we're projecting. If they do not, we'll be more and more concerned about what we have to do in order to maintain that adequate fund balance, which we know we're going to be eating into more this year than we have in the previous 3 to 4 years. But there's still a lot of uncertainties out there, so it's that delicate balance of not acting too quickly but not being too late.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Member McQuaid.
Okay, as a new guy, Casey, I want to understand on the property tax income, so when you have first prior year, second prior year, and all other prior years, they didn't pay their taxes in the proper year, so you're making it up now.
Exactly.
So what I heard you then say was, well, because we gained 700,000 in the last year where people were catching up. As they catch up, they pay current.
Right.
So that has an effect on what you're estimating.
That is correct.
Okay.
And those prior year collections were also impacted by foreclosures. And so as more of those went through the process and were cleared by the banks, they had to pay the back taxes on those. I only know anecdotally, but there appear to be fewer foreclosures at this time than there were a couple of years ago that are selling on the market.
All right, thank you very much. And at this time, we will move on to a review of police department budgets. I believe that will be Chief Moore.
That mean I can't cross the bridge?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Chair Dickey, and members of the Budget Committee. It's nice to see most of you again. Well, it's nice to see all of you again. Some of you new ones. I'd like to introduce some of the members of my staff in case there's some tough questions that I can't answer. They may pop up and help me out. Deputy Chief Steve Belshaw, our 911 Director Mark Buckholz, Deputy Chief Skip Miller, Deputy Chief Jim Ferreris, and our budget analyst Linda Weber here to assist tonight if necessary. The police department operating budget crosses 4 different funds. The general fund is actually the police department, the Willamette Valley Communications Center Fund, the police regional records system fund, and the city services fund, which is our radio communications fund, and I'll speak about all of those tonight. The proposed general budget for the police department is, as you can see, $38 million. I will tell you 83% of that is personal services, and about 17% of that is material and services. I think you're probably all familiar with the police department, so I won't bore you with many details, but I'll just cover some of what I think are the highlights. The budget continues our current programs at levels and services for emergency response, crime prevention, criminal investigations. This is pretty much a hold-the-line budget as far as services. We haven't added any personnel or programs in the police department, but I think we're holding steady. Emergency response includes our first responders, our patrol officers in the cars, our motor officers on the bikes, our downtown team, which you saw a picture of, and our special teams, all our SWAT, our bomb squad, our negotiators, all our first responders to emergency situations. Our patrol officers, obviously the officers in the car are the ones you see driving around, and they're actually our very first responders to calls for service. They cover 621 miles of city streets every day of the week, of the year, and answer calls for service that come in from the community. Downtown bike team consists of 5 officers that patrol the downtown area, responding to issues that businesses or shoppers or visitors in the downtown area might have. They also patrol Riverfront Park and Wallace Marine Park as well. Traffic control unit is our motorcycle officers. They deal with traffic enforcement mainly, but they help with special events, and they respond to serious automobile accidents. And of course, their goal is to keep pedestrians and motorists safe. I mentioned our special teams. They're a group of highly trained individuals. It is a secondary job for all of them. It's not a primary role. So when our special teams are called out, they come from patrol or investigations or other parts of our department. And they're the ones that deal with probably our more serious situations that maybe our patrol officers aren't equipped to deal with. Of Criminal investigations includes our detectives, crime lab, gang team, drug team, and our street crimes unit. I'd like to say that some of these special units are what sets us apart from some of the other agencies in the area, and that we have the ability to take care of issues that not a lot of smaller agencies are able to do. And I think the support that this council and our mayor and city manager have given us over the years allows us to continue to do that. Crime prevention is listed here. Crime prevention is actually a function of every officer in our police department every day of the year, but it's also a distinct unit within the investigations division. And I mention this here because due to the importance of the activities that they take part in. You know, I like to think our police department is professional and efficient and gets the job done well, but quite frankly, we can't do it by ourselves. And if we don't enlist the help of our community with crime prevention roles, we're not going to be successful, and we've done a good job trying to do that. Improving neighborhood livability is obviously one of our goals. Takes on many faces and forms. Responding to drug house complaints, homeless issues. We want to have a vibrant downtown. Graffiti and parks are all examples of areas that we try to focus our attention on. Our general fund budget includes all of these programs, as well as the administration and support of those units, which would be our personnel and training section, our property and evidence, our records section, and our internal affairs office. Some of the significant changes, although our proposed budget does not contain funds to add services or people, it does contain funds to allow us to continue all the current service levels that we currently have. And enhancing community relationships and community outreach is a big part of what we do. You know, I know all of you watch TV and you read the media and see what's going on all around this world. And quite frankly, most of the headlines that have referenced police in some of these current weeks and years have not been positive. Our ability to outreach to our community, I think, has been a big part of our success, and it's probably never been more important than where we are today with what goes on around this nation. And I will continue to make that a focal point of what we do. I think we're very well respected within this community. We are not Ferguson, but we want to make sure that something like that never happens here, and that when we do have a significant incident that occurs in this city, that we have supporters and people that trust us and respect the work we do and are able to respond. So that will continue to be part of what we do. We'll work to continue on exploring and updating and replacing our technology tools used throughout our department. Our foundation, the Police Foundation, has been super at helping us improve some of the technology within our department that, quite frankly, our budget doesn't allow us to purchase, and we certainly appreciate what they do for us. We will also continue to provide support where we can to the council as you potentially move forward with the plans for a new police facility, which I think is really important for us. I will tell you, I'm very proud of this organization, and as we move forward, I think it's important that you understand that, and hopefully you feel the same way. We really do make a difference in this community, I believe. Our officers appreciate the trust and support that they receive from this community, but I will tell you they also understand that that's something that's not just given, it's something that we have to earn, and we take that very seriously. Because of that, I want to tell you that we have a great deal of partnerships within this community. I just list some of them, and we're always looking for continued partnership with anyone that is interested and we think is important that they work with us. Moving forward, as I said, community relations will be a major factor in what we do. We certainly look forward to strengthening those relationships. Programs such as National Night Out, our dress rehearsal for Halloween, our participation in Shop with a Cop, those are all things that help us reach out into the community and make people feel comfortable around their police department. We use a great deal of social media, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, to reach out to the community in a different way, which I think we really need to do nowadays. Not that I understand any of it. I'm told it's common for our Facebook posts to receive hundreds of likes, and in one post from last year's snowstorm even reached over 33,000 people on the web, so we think that's important. You know, we'll continue to watch the legislature for things that impact us, and I will guarantee you there will be things that impact us coming out of this legislature, whether it's marijuana, body cams, use of force. There's going to be a lot of bills that will certainly impact how we do our job, and we'll stay on top of that. Future outlook also contains mental health services. Mental health issues are a big part of what we do, and responding to issues of people in crisis is certainly a big part of our response. We have been fortunate to have a partnership with the Marion County Sheriff's Office of Mental Health, where we actually have mental health workers, our mental health worker riding with one of our officers or a deputy, and responding as the initial responding unit to people in mental health crises. It's a small bite of the apple, I will tell you that. We were able to have one officer or one deputy out 7 days a week for 10 hours, but we can't cover all of the shifts. But in just over 7 months of operation, they've responded to 455 calls for service. 58% of those had to do with individuals who presented suicidal tendencies. So they've been very important. And then finally, our concerns for vulnerable communities, which includes our youth, our elderly, and minority communities, will stay on top of that. I'll just move on to the other funds very quickly, which would be our WVCC, our 911 answering center, our regional record system, and our radio communications fund. All three of these operations are enterprise funds and involve cost sharing with many other agencies. WVCC, our 911 center, handles call answering and dispatch for 29 police, fire, and ambulance agencies in Marion, Polk, and Lincoln counties. 2 other police agencies also use our 911 software system. Our police regional record system, which we call PRIORS, is a consortium of 13 law enforcement agencies in Marion, Polk, and Lincoln. And our radio communications fund is an operating fund for the city's radio systems that are used by police, fire, public works, and community compliance, as well as several outside agencies. There are significant changes most likely in store for each of those funds. The replacement of the city's aging radio system is ongoing. We had put out an RFP and have had are evaluating the responses from that. The radio fund has over $8 million set aside for radio replacement, and hopefully by the end of the next fiscal year it'll have well over that $10 million or so. Replacement of our records management system for our records and our officers in the field. We've also been able to set aside about $1 million for that. And of course, preparation for the next generation of 911 data, which is pictures, text, video. We talked about the same thing last year. We're not there yet simply because the state has not provided the I'll say the guts of what we need to do to provide that, but our system currently would be able to handle that once it is available. Future outlook for these funds, I will tell you we'll continue to pursue technology advancements where feasible. We'll keep an eye on the state funding for our 911 system and stabilization of that fund. For the past several years, I will tell you our WVCC, our budget for our dispatch center, we've elected to minimize rate increases over the years and have actually cut into our working capital, if you will, our reserve funds. And so the advisory group today of 29 police, fire, and chiefs and sheriffs voted on a 7.9 increase in the budget for next year, which will help stabilize our staffing. It'll add 4 additional call takers and put us in a position where we hopefully can stabilize that fund, reduce overtime, and move forward with what we believe is a very functional and professional 911 center. So that covers all 4 funds, and I would certainly be open to any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to public testimony. Has anybody signed up for public testimony on this fund? No? No? All right, I have one person signed up for public testimony, Alan Scott. And I will remind you that the orange light comes on after 2 minutes, and at 3 minutes, the red light comes on when your testimony's done.
Yeah, thank you. I was told not to put my hat on those anymore. My name is Alan Scott. I'm Ward 1. I came down tonight because I saw on the agenda was the graffiti abatement, and I first want to compliment the City of Salem for having one of the best abatement programs, I think, between Tacoma and San Diego. I travel a lot. I see graffiti everywhere, and I really think the city does a great job. I do have one concern, and I don't know if it's a staffing issue or not, but I call every time I see graffiti, no matter where it is. And I've noticed over the last year or so that graffiti on, and I noticed it was referred here in the report, on utility panels, utility poles, tend to stay on those items a lot longer than they used to. And I don't know if that's a staffing program. I have pressed for why that's occurring, what's the difference, and I see that it was referred to in here also as a waiver program that's changed or something to that effect. So I would encourage the city to, if it needs more staffing, to get these waivers done, to do so. I have a couple cans of spray paint, and I take my little picture and spray things over sometimes, but I would really like to see the city deal with the utility graffiti quicker. I mean, I could come down and pick waivers up and walk them around if that would help. I'm retired, I could do that, but I'll do whatever I can, because graffiti, I think it's part of crime prevention as much as it is neighborhood livability. So.
All right, thank you very much. Are there questions for Mr. Scott? Yes, Member Benjamin.
Thank you, Mr. Scott, for
Yes.
coming down and stepping up
Yep.
about the graffiti issue. I myself, being in the NOLA neighborhood, have had a rash of graffiti, and getting on top of it sooner than later is the best course. We haven't had too much of any more graffiti lately, but it has popped up in other parts of the neighborhood. Just to understand, you had called the city and asked, why does it take so long for utilities to get addressed? And the answer they gave you was?
They're waiting for a waiver. And it sounded to me like it was more of a city delay than a utility delay. The person, well, Kim, I guess I could refer to Kim. She's the graffiti abatement person. Wonderful lady, great personality. I really like her calling me back. I mean, I get a call usually within 24 hours. But like I said, I've called on overpasses, on I-5, on utility poles, on phone company panels. I always get a call back, okay, we're dealing with it, we're waiting for a waiver and that sort of thing. So this last call, which was probably about 3 days ago, it was a PGE poll, and I said, Kim, this has been going on for, it seems like years, I will say at least a year, that I've heard about we're waiting for a waiver. I mean, how long can it take to get a hold of somebody from PGE and say, you know, we need a waiver to cover the graffiti? So I really had to push her to tell me, you know, kind of like, I'm a taxpayer, can you tell me, sort of thing. But she did indicate that they're waiting for a waiver, and those things, you know, they're legal documents that are dealt with by the city attorney's office. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks. All right, I suspect there are questions for Chief Moore and police. Any questions? All right, we'll start with Member Anderson, then Member McCoy.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions, if that's fine with you. First one is, Chief Moore, I was a little confused about the 9/11 fund stabilization. As I understand it, or I think I understand it, every one of the agencies that the city of Salem provides services for agreed today that they're going to up what they pay you by 7.9%?
That's correct.
And is the fund before that, is it operating at a loss, or, will this be able to, I think you said you can add some personnel there. Is that what it'll do, or what else is stabilization in that?
Well, we used to have, I'm not sure what we call it, a reserve fund, a reserve fund that was quite robust. And as you might guess, over the last 4 years, we've probably done budgeting within those 29 police and fire agencies on a year-to-year basis, where everybody said, wow, our budgets are killing us. We need to keep the rates down. So what we did ultimately, by a vote of all the chiefs and sheriffs, is we had a lower rate increase and dipped into the reserve funds. And what we've found is, after last year, our reserve fund is dangerously low to being eliminated. With the help of our finance folks, we put together a 5-year program, and we looked at and I will just tell you, we looked at a 7.9% increase this year. I think it was a 6.1 next year, 4.7 the following years, and there's a belief that if we have those rates in place, we will be able to have well over $1 million in the reserve fund. So that's what we're looking to do, and I think, to summarize it, I think everybody's budgets were in bad shape over the course of those years, and we probably made some very bad decisions that led to where we are today.
Well, I doubt that last part, but let me ask my next question, which is totally unrelated. If it were possible for you to say, here is one of the program areas that if I could increase, I would. Where would you find that would be? In patrol, detectives, which area your department, in your view, needs the most bump up?
Well, this could be a multiple choice answer. We always have to look at our first responders. When we're fully staffed and trained and we don't have openings, I think we're pretty well staffed in the patrol section. As I look to the future, and I think somebody said it earlier tonight, I think one of the things we're going to have to look at is our ability to police the downtown area once the Minnow Bridge is in place. And I think I think it's going to be, I think there's going to be an expectation that when people are using that there's going to be safety and a police presence, and it's going to go well beyond Wallace and Riverfront now. It's going to go into Minnow Island and into the depths of Minnow Island, quite frankly. I think, so I think we're probably going to have to look for increases there in the future.
Yes, go ahead.
So that would be what, the bicycle patrol units would be the area that would be most likely to get into Minto Brown?
That's correct. We have 1 sergeant and 4 officers right now. About 3 years ago, we used to have 6 officers, but we had some cuts. We lost about 11 positions. We took 2 out of the downtown area. And so right now we have 1 sergeant and 4 officers. And when you look at that, that's really on several of those days it's 1 sergeant and 2 officers, and on some other days it's just 2 officers, and that's spread fairly thin when you look at the expanse that they're going to have to cover.
And most likely the Minto Brown Park issue will be the next fiscal year, not the current fiscal year.
That's what I would say, yes. I think we don't have any increases this year.
Thank you very much.
All right, Member McCoy?
Thank you. Couple questions here.
And one, you mentioned that all the various chiefs that voted on 911 increases. So how is that structured? Is that, I mean,
Well, it's, the 911 center and all of the employees are a division of the police department. We treat it as if we have 28 partners, however, and they're all responsible for their portion of the budget. Now, I will tell you, Chief Niblock and my department pay the bulk of it, or a good portion of it, because we happen to be the largest agencies, and it's, I'm not even going to try and confuse you with how we come up with the rates, but it's based on size and how busy you are. That would be the best way I could summarize it. So all of those agencies pay a portion of what goes into that fund. Ours is obviously the biggest. The city is the biggest. The Marion County Sheriff's Office would be next. And then it cascades down to some of the smaller agencies, but that's how it's funded. It isn't funded solely by the city of Salem. It's funded by all the user agencies.
and so when, I guess I'm just curious, when there's a rate, you go forward and they say, well, gee, we can't afford it, and the city of Salem says, well, we need an increase to maintain the service. Is there a vote, or is it basically, since you and the fire department are the biggest users, you got enough votes to do whatever you want?
Well, actually, Chief Niblock and I get one vote each. So we haven't really had those issues over the years. We have a supportive group, very professional group of chiefs and sheriffs, and I would say over the years we have voted as if we're all partners, and how we need to move forward. And it's a great group of people. They were this year 7.9 increase is a big hit on every agency, and we had one nay vote today, and we had the rest voted in favor of it. So I think that when I look at the tradition of what's happened in the years past, I think that's exactly the way it's been. Ultimately, in answer to your question, if we said we had to have a rate increase and everybody voted against us, I'd be calling legal to tell me what to do.
I guess that's the gist of my question. Maybe you want to be prepared before that ever happens, but
Yeah.
it hasn't, so.
Yeah.
I have a second question. You referred a couple times that you'd set aside funds for future upgrades, whether it was, I think, 911 and the radio. Do you budget for that in this budget? I mean, in other words, you've got a cost for the radio division.
Yeah, we put away money every year into the radio fund, and for many, many years, and Director Buckholz could address this, but I think I have a good grasp of it. For many years, we would replace equipment just because it was time to replace it, even if it didn't need to be replaced. We changed that, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago to replace equipment when it's necessary to replace that equipment. So that is how we've been able to build up, I'll call it the reserve fund, or the fund for a radio replacement. We're still able to take care of the needs of the city and its equipment, but we've tried to put money away for the replacement of the radio system, and that's all the users within the city pay into that fund.
Okay. And so that's carried somewhere?
So, yeah, I'd just like to comment. If you look in the construction fund, it's book page 55, I believe that's book 2, excuse me. You'll see there the radio replacement, and that's where the funds currently reside for phase 1 of that project. So they're accumulated through the radio rates and then transferred into that fund as construction is imminent and ready to move forward.
So then a final question. So when we have cash carry forward for the year, does that include those funds or not?
So that's separate from the general
It's
fund.
separate,
That would
right.
not include
Okay.
that.
Member Nanki?
Could I, excuse me,
I'm sorry.
if I could go back to one question before we leave. Director Buckholz told me that all of the agencies do contract with us. So if we were to set a rate increase, that's what would go through. And then if they didn't, I guess if an agency wasn't comfortable with that, they could tell us they're leaving, and they'd have to give us a year's notice, I believe is what it is. So, that,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Nanki?
Okay, thanks. Couple questions on technology, kind of, if you consider a picture, just a straight picture technology, which it kind of is, and what the restrictions are on what we can use for evidence as compared to a police officer actually seeing an offense take place?
well, I'm not sure I understand your question, but.
I'll
for
give you
instance-
two examples because they're different. One, a gentleman has an access way. It's posted no parking. His neighbors don't really care about that, and they have people park there on occasion. But by the time he calls, they're already gone before an officer gets there. Second is a guy I work with has a camera that's hooked up through Wi-Fi in his truck, and takes a picture of a guy who repeatedly breaks into his vehicle, and there's a whole string of car clouts happening in that area. Can either of those be cited with a photo?
Well, we'd have to develop probable cause to know who it is, but we can use video like that anytime we want. It's not our video, someone's given it to us. I will tell you, we solve many crimes by going to one of the, to Walmart or Winco and utilizing the video that they have in their business, and we use it all the time, and it's a great tool. We talk about it all the time, and you walk downtown and you might be on 70 cameras as you walk through town, and that as long as the business is willing to give it to us, or they make us aware that it's there. When we have a crime, we'll go out to the scene, but one of the things we do is we canvass the neighboring businesses to see who has cameras, and if what occurred, we were able to catch it on some sort of video. So absolutely, we can use that.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Member Bennett, and then Member Benars.
Thank you. First, Chief, congratulations on receiving the Campbell Award, which is an award that honors you for, boy, a career, it sounded like, of just incredible
Thank you.
work. Yeah, it was really, I think, an honor, obviously a huge honor for you, a real honor for Salem, and really puts the truth to what you've had to say about your whole program. I thought that was really impressive. And then I wanted to ask you about one part of your program. I just because we've had a couple of folks in. I've heard about it for the past year or so. I've talked with you about it. It's the graffiti program. Mm-hmm. And I want to understand this waiver process. We had the chair of the Lansing neighborhood in at our last council meeting describe a lady who had been approached because she's been hit so many times,
Right.
9 times with 9 waivers. What happened? Because we used to have, and I'm sure you remember this better than I do, immediate response, immediate paint over with the property owner's permission. Many of us have probably been through this, where Kim would call and say, "Can I paint your fence?" Mm-hmm. Sure. Anytime you can paint. It's sort of the perpetual waiver if you live in an area where you start getting hit. What's happened to this program?
Right. Well, I'll give you a little history. I think our graffiti program's been in place for 20 years almost. I think it's worked seamlessly for 19 years. And, and I think last year we had some issues. I mentioned last night I thought it was like the perfect storm. We had some things happen. Kim, our graffiti coordinator, was injured while painting over graffiti, and she was out of the mix for an extended period of time. And at the same time, we had our interns leave, and so we had to look to other resources within the police department. If you're probably all aware, it's a one-person operation, one full-time with an intern, and when we don't have either of them, we have to look elsewhere. At the same time, I think we took a good look at the training that was necessary, OSHA training for anybody that's out doing graffiti cover-up, and we also looked at the program and how we operate, and out of that came the waiver form. And quite frankly, in the old days, if somebody tells you could paint over the graffiti, that worked great, and I think it's wonderful that we were able to do that. I think if you look at best practice and legalities and some of those things, we're going onto somebody else's property, and we're painting over something that doesn't belong to us. And I think from a legal standpoint, I believe we thought we really do need to have some sort of waiver that we can prove that somebody's giving us permission to do that. And when I say that, I mean, we could see graffiti on a white house, and we could go paint it, and it would be gray or green or whatever color we happen to have that day, and the homeowner could go, that looks worse than the graffiti. And so I think that's kind of how the waiver came about. I will tell you, for whatever reasons, the waivers we haven't gotten the process moving as quickly as we can. I think once we do, I think we will have a good program. We have to have waivers for individuals. And you mentioned, Counselor, one person being victimized 9 times and having to do 9 waivers. I think the legal department and us are, I think we're about there where you sign a waiver and it's good for an extended period of time, where if you're a repeat victim, you're not going to have to sign another waiver. Similar to what we do with, we have people that give us permission to arrest people that are trespassing on their property. They sign it once and it's good for a year. And so I think that's where we're going to go. The other piece is utilities. One of the things that from just talking to everyone, people love is the immediacy of us removing graffiti. I think the best way for us to do that is we can rely on some of the utility companies to go out and take care of it. But I'm going to guess in the world of business, that's probably a pretty low priority for them. And so my concern is that it'll stay for quite some time. I think what we're trying to do is get the utilities to sign that same waiver, so that when our people go by it, they're able to paint over it and we don't have to wait. And so those are all in progress. In fact, I believe, I think the waivers are complete, and we're just going to go out and get them signed. And I think the program will once again be seamless, and we'll be able to move forward with a more immediate removal of the graffiti.
Great, thanks, Chief. That's just the kind of solution you'd expect is a waiver letter of, a graffiti
Consent.
letter of consent that you can come paint by. Yeah. So we will ultimately have that was sort of, as a citizen, I could file one if I have a fence that keeps getting hit, or
I don't know if you'd have to.
PGE could file one?
Absolutely, and that would be our hope, is that we can go
City
to
of Salem?
PGE or Comcast or whatever it might be, get one waiver that we can take care of their property. Now, that, of course, is up to them.
Right.
So we will have to determine whether they want to do it, but I think, I don't think they want unsightly graffiti on their equipment either, and so I'm hoping that we'll be able to move forward with that.
Well, hopefully that and I can't remember the ordinance exactly, but that we do have some ways of making it more beneficial to sign a waiver for the utility companies than to leave graffiti in our neighborhoods.
Yeah, our ordinance calls for removal within 5 days of notice that it's there. So I don't think anybody wants to leave it there longer. My concern is, as I said, that maybe without utilizing their resources to go after graffiti, which may not be their highest priority, I think it behooves us to be able to do it ourselves and work in cooperation with them.
And I don't see, I want to just mention to you, I was at the Can Do Downtown Neighborhood Association meeting last night, and Sergeant Van Meter gave his presentation. I can't tell you again, and you mentioned it again, how popular that downtown enforcement team is, not only with all of us who go downtown, but with the people who live downtown, and with 170 new units coming in, perhaps some more housing coming in downtown. I can only suspect it's going to become increasingly important, and I'm glad to hear you say that perhaps within the next year or two we'll see suggestions for addition to that team. I think the pressures for that kind of support with the addition of the bridge, as you mentioned, and the growing population, residential population downtown is really going to marshal even more support. But you all get an incredible vote of confidence from these downtown residents
Thank
for
you.
the work you're doing.
Good,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Member Benars.
I have two comments, if I may. First one was, I would like to see, in reference to that permit form that people are signing that are lasting 1 year, to see if it would be possible to extend it to a longer period of time. I would say, intuitively, I would say that graffiti occurs all the time throughout the year, but probably more in the warmer months of the year. And it would be one of those things where you're getting the permit and then you're having, just literally the year is over because it's during the summertime, and then you forget about it during the wintertime, more or less. But just think about that as a potential.
Will do.
Okay, second one I wanted to talk about a little bit more was where the funds are going within your $38 million budget. And I noticed that we've had property crimes have increased 2.7%, mostly from an 11.9% increase in the shoplifting and a 19.5% increase in theft from motor vehicle. And the theft from motor vehicle is, even in our neighborhoods in the south, has been probably one of the larger things. You know, when I looked at the budget, I was looking at things like patrols are only being increased 2.1%, so it's a less than inflation rate increase in patrols. However, investigation and support are both greater than 4% increases. What I was concerned about is this balloon that you're squeezing, and if we take care of getting crimes down at one end, they're going to pop up at the other, and just because resources are reprioritized.
Right.
Can you speak to that a little?
Well, I can. I can tell you, everyone within investigations and patrol works on all of those issues that you're dealing with. When you say patrol's only been increased 2.1, we haven't added any people there. We haven't added any people to investigations. We haven't added any people to the downtown team or anywhere else. So I think when you see those increases, it has to do with salaries and wages and things like that. We still deploy our people wherever we need them to be deployed. We routinely don't take people out of patrol, for instance, because we need them. But when we have vacant positions, most of them are in patrol, quite frankly. When you look at crime rates and some of those things, I think it's more than just where we deploy our people. It's somewhat cyclical on who's in jail and who isn't. And if we're able to make sure that we're putting the right people in jail. And that's what our investigators try and do, is they try and focus on our prolific offenders. That's where we get the biggest bang for our buck. And because, you know, a lot of people say, you know, you want to put violent offenders away. Well, there are some violent offenders that commit one crime in their life. There are some property crime offenders that commit thousands of crimes, and they actually have perhaps a bigger impact globally than one person does. So the increases you see aren't necessarily tied to adding people or anything like that. It's just wages and such. And we will always deploy our people in the fashion we think will best keep the crime rate down.
So within that same vein, I noticed that personnel increases have gone up about 4.5%, while materials and supplies have gone down about 1.5%. The shift has been away from one and towards the other, you might say.
Well, the shift is due to some factors that healthcare,
Contracts.
some contracts, some of
Okay.
those things. And quite frankly, when personal services go up, materials and services probably go down, so you can meet your budget goals. And that's a little bit of what we do. We don't have a lot of equipment in this that we've requested. We have no capital outlay. And I think you'll probably see that across the board in many cases, is that when budgets are lean, we have to make do, and that's what we try and do.
Okay. If I may, just one more. You had a slide up before about, was it ROARS, or it was a $1 million expense this year, and it had no full-time employee equivalent?
Right. Actually, we have an entire portion of our budget that it's called non-divisional. And in that would be $2.2 million for what we pay for our WVCC. We might have money in there for training that is just general training that anybody in the police department might be able to pull from. That's where our, in our non-divisional is where our uniforms are and our equipment. So it's an extremely large budget, but it has absolutely no personnel just because it's, for lack of better, it's stuff. Oh, and maybe the one you're looking at, I'm sorry, the $1 million is our priors, and that's our records
Priors, that's
management
it, okay.
system. I'm
That's
sorry, I
the what
missed your
system?
question. Thank you, Steve. It's our records management system, which is end of life, I think, in a couple months. And so we are looking to replace that, and that's the money that we've saved. Again, that is the same fund as, similar fund to WVCC, where all of the user agencies pay into it, and that's how much money we've been able to put away to help us replace that system.
Hence, no employees listed under that. They're listed under some of the other columns.
Exactly. That would it would basically be our records section is who deals with our records management.
Okay, something I noticed. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I missed your question. Thanks.
That's okay.
All right, Mayor Peterson and then Member Benjamin.
Thank you very much. Chief, we certainly do appreciate your fine service and the service of your department day in and day out. I know you are there keeping our community safe. I want to say how much I appreciate that. I have a couple of questions. One has to do in the area of training. It's kind of my favorite question every year. How are we doing? Are we able to really pay for the training that's needed? Are you feeling like you're having to cut back every year so that it's more of a problem?
Well, I think over the years, our training budget has certainly suffered a little as the economy goes bad and we don't have as much, but I think we do an awfully great job with our training. We have some incredible in-house trainers, and I would say the majority of our training is done with in-house trainers who look at real-world issues and try and come up with training that prepares us to deal with the things that are happening in this world, in this country right now, and in this city. And I think they do a really good job, and I think our performance on the street and how we deal with issues is a good reminder that that's working. There's always a need for us to go to training that is not in-house, whether it's training on a specialty, whether it's a convention of chiefs, where we hear things that are going on all around the country and best practices and new and innovative ways to do things. We certainly try and send our officers to those types of training whenever we can. There's personal development that is incredibly important. We have a patrol officer that might someday want to be a detective, and we want to try and give him training to prepare for that. Just like when somebody becomes a detective, we have to send them to a training that is related to the new job that they have. So, I could tell you we could always use more training funds, but I think we get a pretty good return on the way we utilize our funds the way they are.
Okay, thank you. My other question has to do with the downtown team and the downtown populations and the panhandling and the high amount of homelessness that we're experiencing in our community, not only on the downtown streets, but the effect on the parks, particularly Wallace Marine Park and Minto Brown Island Park. And I'm concerned that our downtown team had been reduced to the 4 officers and the 1 sergeant. And I'm wondering about, as we plan for the new bridge to Minto Brown Island and we look ahead, knowing how long it takes to add officers and have them go through the proper training at DPSST and all of that time, should we be planning now for an increase in the budget now so that those officers could be hired to strengthen the downtown team to meet the needs of the additional residents that we know are going to be living downtown when the Pringle Square apartments are filled, and also when the bridge is open and we start having people back and forth all the time into parts of Minto Brown Island that we had never had access to before. I just don't want to be in a position where we wait until now the apartments are full, now the bridge is open, and now we need an officer, because I know that it takes months before that officer hired could actually be on the bicycles or on the street in a car. Could you talk about that? And I think that maybe also we might want our city manager to talk a bit about this, planning ahead, but in your business, we have to start planning now.
Well, I really think he should talk about that, because I may not be the person to respond to that. But I will tell you this, you are absolutely right. I think from the day we advertise for a police position and to the time that we put somebody on the road, it can be 12 months, 14 months. I mean, I'm talking from the very beginning, so you're right. I think we probably have 8 openings today, which hurts us. When we're fully staffed, I think we're probably in better shape. I think we probably have 8 openings right now. We have 10 in training in FDA training. We just hired 5 2 weeks ago. I think we had 5 graduate from the academy a couple 3 weeks ago. So we probably have 10 in training. Easily. So that's about 18 bodies that are not really available to us, and that has an impact. It would be wonderful if we could, years ago when the budgets were flush, overhires were utilized, and it was a great way to do it. I just don't think we're in the financial position to do that. If we could do that, I think that would be a great thing, because we could be ahead of the curve rather than behind it. And
I think you addressed it well. The bridge, we're anticipating coming online in November of 2016. Given the time of year that it's opening and the level of flooding on the island and the rains, I anticipate the highest use and activity will occur sometime in the spring or summer of next budget year. So I agree we have to be forward-thinking. But I also think if the positions are in next year's budget, then we'll have them online when there will be the most use of that bridge and the additional people downtown who would require the services.
How many officers do you anticipate adding for those needs?
We have not discussed that. At this point, I'd have to talk with the chief to see what he would project as the increase to their workload and what would be sufficient to cover that. I don't know offhand because we haven't had those discussions, but I think it would be possibly 2. But like I said, we would have to have that discussion and do further analysis.
Well, among some of the items that people remind me about regularly out in the community, and one of them is certainly the concern about the high incidence of panhandling, particularly in the downtown area, and the homeless members just sort of on the streets downtown. And I really do think that there's more of a problem since we've had to decrease the number of officers that are actually down there. And I really give praise again to the officers that are on their bikes and on the streets downtown, because people see them and they know that there's a safer environment. But the decrease is really hurting our downtown, and it's hurting the reputation that we have from people who would like to come downtown but don't feel as safe downtown. And I really think it's something we need to be addressing now rather than only after the bridge is built. I really encourage if we could find, and I guess I would go so far as to say let's put it on the wish list to add at least 1 more officer downtown, and then be planning ahead for the additional ones. And I'm also wondering at some point if we might be able to have some kind of a regular report from the department with regard to filling the vacancies, and if there's something that we could be doing with in our HR department coupled with the police department so that we're getting these positions that are open now filled. And I know that we're competing. Are we able to be competitive with other departments with our pay and benefits and the way we operate?
Well, I think we're competitive. I think a lot of people would like to work here. I think there are places that pay a little better, and so some people may be steered towards higher pay, some may be steered towards where they want to work. There's a variety of things there. I think HR department assists us very well with our recruiting and our hiring process. I will tell you, and as I talk to the chiefs, I will tell you that probably the biggest issue we're having now is finding qualified applicants. And it's not just here, it's universal. And we make a list up, and we might start with 400 applicants, and we might hire 6 or 8 of them off of that entire group of people. And so it's a frustrating process, and it's just something that is going on everywhere. But we just keep moving forward. We look for the best candidates we can, and I think the ones we hire we're very, very pleased with, and we'll continue to make hiring and being fully staffed a priority.
So we have 8 openings right
I
now.
think it's about 8. Yeah, it's 8 openings right now.
How long do you think it would take to fill those 8?
You mean if we, from today, to fill those positions? Yeah, if we tested today, I don't know if we have people left on our list. I think it's probably pretty much expired. It closes 4 months probably before we could begin hiring.
If you had a greater budget in administration to do the kinds of background checks, the processing, all of that, would that maybe shorten that period of time?
Well, I think, I think there is a process for hiring, and it entails a great deal. It entails interviews and backgrounds and physical tests and doctor's exams, and it may include polygraphs here in the near future, depending on what the legislature does. We have a cadre of background investigators. There are times when we're lean there. Usually what we utilize is retired officers that we've trained to help us out with that. When we have a glut of backgrounds that we need to do, we call on our detectives to assist us as well. So I think we can get through the backgrounds fairly good, but I mean, we could always use more. It'd be foolish for me to say that we couldn't. If we had a better cadre of background investigators, it might speed up the process a little.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Member Benjamin?
I'd like to add on with or approve what the mayor said. It's important that probably that discussion should happen sooner than later about having extra police in the downtown core, ahead of the wave, if you will. Evidence room. I know we talked about it in the past. Where's that at now?
Well, we take in an awful lot of property, and we don't get rid of as much as we take in, so it's crowded. I will just tell you that. There was a study years ago by a firm that indicated we probably have half the staffing in there that we need. But we've actually added, I think, 1.5 positions in the last few years, so that's the good part. Evidence control and property control is it's a very difficult situation for all police agencies, especially one our size. Releasing evidence or releasing or disposing of property is a time and laborious task, simply because you have to get approval from district attorneys and such. And once again, some of those things are low on their priority list simply because they have so many things to do. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, we have really worked to improve the functionality of what's going on in our property room. I think in the last couple of months, we've probably removed about 4 to 6 tons of property that to make room. We've made some changes to how we track evidence. So I think things are improving, but I think we have a ways to go, and we'll continue to make the changes that we think are necessary to make sure that's run professionally and within the standards.
Well, more directly, I'm looking at it because we kind of talked about a way, if that evidence is just not going to get claimed, it's just the person's not going to claim it or whatever, can we liquidate it, get funds for that, and help that with the police department?
Yeah. I don't know if we need funds to do that. I think we have to look at the process for liquidating that property. For instance, one of the things we're talking about is taking all misdemeanor crimes from a certain year, and if they haven't been prosecuted yet, we get a blanket release for minor crimes to just eliminate all that evidence and clean that out. Found property or some of those things that that we come across. We have to keep that for a certain amount of time, but once that's time is gone, we would like to dispose of it. Our problem is whether sometimes we don't have the personnel to help us take care of that, and so we're working to improve that process, and that's where we'll be going.
Okay, and one more. I was just looking through this addendum here that they added with some of these costs that came up in regards to fax machine replacement. I know this is just pennies, but it's $900. Who uses a fax machine anymore? Especially when you bought 3 desktop scanners at $2,500. And
it's a federal CJIS requirement, Criminal Justice Information System, that we have to take care of business that way.
through a fax
Yeah.
at $900. And then shotguns, you got 3 shotguns at $2,200. That's $733 a shotgun. Anything special about them?
They're really good shotguns.
I'll bet. I mean,
I don't know. I think they're certainly manufactured for police use, and it's probably the quality and the specifications that meet the needs of police agencies.
well, you know, you can get a Mossberg police persuader for like $500. You know, so
Yeah, it's equipment that goes with this: slings, lights,
Okay.
some of the things that a hunter might not need, for instance. But somebody that's carrying it on a mission or on a call.
okay, well, I've made them for cheaper. So, tasers, replacements, 10 of them, $8,900, $890 a piece. I know they're probably better than the ones I see in the magazines advertised for $150. But it seems like at $890 a pop, don't we get a discount for buying 10 at a time?
Yeah, I think that includes a discount, quite frankly, and I think
Wow.
we buy them, and we have a contract, and I think that's probably not a bad price, considering what
Okay,
what
I
they could
figured
go
that
for.
this is pretty specific equipment. Last one, bicycle for downtown team replacement, $1,200. That includes helmet, gloves, or is
Yeah,
that
it
just the
includes the
bike?
entire package and sets the bike up for, basically for immediate use, and probably the officer as well as some of the equipment. He might need the helmet and some of that.
Okay, that's what I was curious about, because a $1,200 bike's real nice, but you can get an $800 bike, helmet, gloves, lights, the whole
Right.
thing. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Is that what's happening? Is it getting fully decked out, $1,200 out the door?
Let me check.
Okay. I know, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I will say that the bikes we get are pretty heavy duty. They're used every single day. They go up downstairs, they go through parks, they go through a lot of places, and so we try and certainly buy a bike that is going to stand up to that, so we don't have to continue to buy them. So I think on the front side, we might spend a little extra money to make sure we have the right bike that is going to take care of the issues that bike has to go through.
Okay, hey, thank you very much.
You bet.
Member Collier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi. We have in the past in these chambers talked about how we rank compared to peer cities, similar size and the size of their police force. Do you know off the top of your head how we rank? I believe it was Eugene, maybe Beaverton, and maybe there was a third one. Size-wise?
Well, I think it fluctuates. I think we're very similar to Eugene, quite frankly. I think we're almost identical. They may have, depending on budget years, they may have a few more than we do, or we might have a few more than them in some years. We used to have the how many officers per 1,000 rankings, which in some respects didn't mean much. It's are you able to do your job? I think if you did comparables with Salem and some East Coast cities, for instance, we'd be at 1.9 or 2 officers per 1,000. They might be at 5, but policing's done differently there. I think in terms of Oregon agencies, we're probably in the middle of the pack or very similar.
Thank you.
Member McQuaid?
Chief, going back to Sort of the mayor's question, you referenced you just, I think, hired 5, and you had 5 in training. When you put them in training, do you have them designated for a certain job?
That's a really great question. When we hire someone, if someone's never been a police officer before, well, let me go to the very end of your answer. As soon as someone is trained, they're going to go to the patrol division. That's where you learn how to be a police officer. When we hire someone off the street, we put them usually through a 5-week academy internally. Then we get them ready to go to the police academy, which is 16 weeks. When they come out of the 16-week academy, they're in another academy for 2 or 3 weeks, I think it is. And then they go out with different coaches, basically 4 different coaches for basically a month at a time. So you can see right there you have 9 or 9.5 months tied up. And as soon as they're trained, they'll go to patrol. That's where they'll do most of their training when they return from the academy. And when they go solo, they'll be on patrol. They'll stay in patrol for however long. Some of them might stay there forever if that's what they like. After several years, 2 or 3 years, they're eligible to move to detectives or somewhere else. But we want them on patrol where they're going to learn how to be a cop.
So the downtown bike, that's patrol, right? Or is that
It's basically,
specialized?
yeah, it's probably one of the patrol assignments that is highly sought after, but we take our bike officers out of our patrol. Well, we could take our bike officers out of anywhere in the police department. For instance, if a detective decided he wanted to be a bike officer and has tenure, he could apply. I won't bore you with how we fill those vacancies, but normally the bike officers come out of patrol.
Okay, so I guess a final question then. So it would be possible, if you've got 5 in training and issues started popping up downtown, that you could move one of those 5 or use one of those incoming people or move people around to fill that spot rather than have to get a year ahead to do it?
Well, I'd be pretty nervous doing that if they're not fully trained. I don't know how. We want to make sure they're able to deal with people, they're able to deal with situations. And if somebody's in training, we are certainly not going to put them out on their own. And when you're on the bike, you can be on your own very quickly, depending on what's going on. If they usually, while there may be 2 or 3 of them on duty, they're usually not together. So I would say it'd be rare, if not, if we would never put somebody in training out there by themselves.
I guess I was thinking more of, okay, you've got an experienced person, you move in there. I mean, at some point, they're on their own, even if they're new.
Right. As soon as we could make adjustments, today if we decided that we were having so many downtown issues. We could take people out of special units. We could take people out of detectives. We could move patrol people to the downtown team if we had to. But it's like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. If you use them there, then you're not going to have a auto theft investigator, or you're not going to have a drug team investigator. So that's our issue. If we were to get those 10 officers out of training, and we felt the patrol division, we didn't have people injured or out, and we decided we wanted to move people to the downtown team, that's a deployment that we would decide on internally, and that would be possible.
Member Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remembered a question I had that I've run into again. Maybe it's a comment, maybe it's a question. One of the things that keeps coming up in my ward, which is downtown and kind of the close-in neighborhoods, mainly to the north, has been these pedestrian deaths. Mm-hmm. And a genuine concern about pedestrian safety. Mm-hmm. In both the downtown area and then on some of those larger arterials. Obviously, we lost 2 neighbors out on near mm-hmm. Hawthorne mm-hmm. and Market, and one, as I recall, on Center Street. It comes up as a question of both what are we doing about it, and patrol, whether it's enhanced patrol of crosswalks, the old programmer, you know, if people were
Right.
driving through real fast or not stopping for pedestrians. I just wanted to mention that. It has come up, I think, as a function of those really tragic fatalities. And just so you know, people are, in my area, are genuinely pretty concerned about it right now.
Thank you. I think you're right. I think everybody's concerned about that. We do conduct pedestrian programs and enforcement on a fairly routine basis. And we certainly enforce both motor vehicle violations and pedestrian violations as well, because, and I'm not talking about these issues, but pedestrians can be hazardous too if they're not following the law as well. I will tell you, in the cases that occurred, I think they were simply tragic incidents. We have to educate our community about clothing and being reflective when you're out at night. You know, the people involved in these tragic accidents were not impaired. They weren't committing traffic violations. They just didn't see the persons that were hit, and unfortunately that happens. I don't want to bore you, but you know, I go jogging or I run my dog in the morning, and I try and make sure that people are going to see me when I'm out there. And I think that's part of what we have to educate our community on, is being safe when you're, not only when you're driving, but when you're out walking or running as well, or on a bicycle, or.
Thanks, Chief.
You bet.
Member Anderson.
This is a follow-up to the question that I asked and the mayor asked and Member McCoy asked. Let's say, back to my wish, if you could put somebody on, what would that cost total, you know, salary, benefits? I mean, how much are we looking at? A ballpark figure would be, I'd be happy.
A recruit officer is probably about $100,000.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Thank you very much, Chief, for that presentation and for answering all the questions. I think what we're going to do right now is take a very brief 5-minute break, because we've been sitting for a while, and then we will come back and start the fire budget.
Start the fire.
Put out the fire.
Okay, I see Chief Niblock is already at the podium and ready to share the fire budget with us.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Budget Committee. I'm Fire Chief Mike Niblock, and it's my pleasure this evening to share with you the General Fund 101 for the Fire Department budget, and also Fund 320, which is an enterprise fund, the Emergency Medical Services Fund. Before I get started this evening, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my executive chief officers who are in attendance tonight. Chief Greg Hadley, Chief Jimmy Stewart, and Interim Deputy Chief Robin Chitwood, and then my management analyst, who is literally my right arm in the organization and does all of our budget, Rachel. Also, I want to start by saying that I'm incredibly proud of the men and women in the department for the effort they put forth every day in this community to keep the public safe. In our report, you'll see that we've had a pretty substantial increase in call volume, and they have worked very diligently to maintain the standard and actually increase it just slightly for our response time over the last year. So I really want to say that I'm proud of them, and I appreciate the work they do every day, day in and day out. So the proposal before you this evening represents a hold-the-line budget for 2015-16. As there are no new positions in this budget, and this budget continues our current level of service and level of resources, that being 9 operational fire stations. The 2 stations that were closed in 2012, Fire Station 8 at the Chemeketa Community College campus and Station 11 on Orchard Heights remain closed in this budget. This budget includes 152 FTEs and is approximately $27 million. The department operates under 4 functional areas that have all experienced staffing reductions during the economic downturn, some more than others. The first functional area of our organization is administration. We have lost 1 deputy chief in that branch over the last 5 years. The second area is prevention, and we have had a reduction of 2 deputy fire marshals in that area. They're also responsible for life safety and citywide emergency management planning. They do that for the entire city. And then finally, training division has also lost an individual. And finally, our largest division is emergency operations, which is the 9 staff fire stations. These are the folks that run the calls every day. And obviously, we've lost 2 stations in the last few years. We're still a full-service fire department. Very much like the police, we offer special teams. We respond to fires, all manners of emergencies, advanced life support, EMS scenarios. We operate a regional hazmat team. We have aircraft rescue firefighting capabilities. We provide a water rescue team and a rope rescue team, confined spaces, trench rescue. Pretty much, if you're having an emergency and you call, we can show up and figure out how to help you out. Many of the agencies around us most of the agencies around us do not offer any of these resources, so we are really kind of on an island here with these types of resources. Much like the police department, we do not have people assigned directly to a special team. They are a firefighter assigned to a station, and they're also cross-trained in a specialty skill. When that need arises, as for example, the top right-hand corner picture is our water rescue boat. We provide surface water rescue. Those people are dispatched out of Station 5, and they're trained in how to operate a boat, how to be a rescue swimmer and a deckhand, and they can go out on the river or lake or wherever they're dispatched to and effect a rescue. In fact, this year we've had two recent rescues. Just real recently, a gentleman was in a motorcycle accident on the bridge and ended up in the river, which was, I'm sure, quite a trip. We were able to get to him, and he's recovering nicely. And then another person had jumped off the bridge, and we were able to get her out of the water as well. So as you can imagine, those are incidents where time is of the essence. The young lady that we got out of the water was just about to go under. So we got there just in the nick of time to get her out of the water. So as I mentioned, significant changes. Budget-wise, there is not a lot of significant changes, but we have added some initiatives in the organization to really focus on our core mission, and our core mission is really saving lives. And so over the last year, we have taken advantage of some technology and really tried to engage the citizenry in the community to help us do just that. So I want to talk about the first two there, a Pulse Point application and citizen CPR and AED training. The Pulse Point application is a smartphone app that's available for iOS or Android devices. It's a free app. We would like everybody with a smartphone to download it and use it. Tying together with that, this application allows you to see all the calls that the Salem Fire Department runs, and if you so elect to receive an alert, if you're within a quarter of a mile of a person having a heart attack, it will actually alert you that CPR is needed, and it will map you to that person. It will also show you where the closest AED is at in the community. To date, we have about 1,850 people who have signed up, and maybe there's some people signing up right now. I'm not sure, but that's great. So we've had a total of 49 alerts to people in the community that CPR was needed, and to 94 different devices. So we have yet to have somebody actually get to the scene and do CPR, but we know that will happen eventually when we get enough people that have the app on their device. We know that early CPR and the application of an automatic external defibrillator to somebody having a cardiac arrest can double or triple your chances of survival. So again, after some 20 years, the department has begun to offer citizen CPR and AED training classes the first and third Saturday of every month at our fire station at the airport location. For a nominal cost of $15 in an hour of your time, you can learn how to do hands-only CPR, and you can be trained how to use an AED. And once you got those skills, then get the app on your phone and you're ready to help a family member, a community member, or anybody that has a cardiac arrest. The third item is the high-performance CPR. This is an initiative that we started a few months ago. We had some folks attend the cardiac survival training up in Seattle. And this was one of the performance enhancing things for providers in the field. And this really is, the best way to explain this is NASCAR, the pit crew. It's a pit crew mentality to doing CPR. Everybody has a pre-assigned job. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And you just continue those compressions. We have seen some pretty remarkable results in just a few months of doing this in the community. And we're pretty excited about the lives that this could save moving forward. And finally, the last one kind of ties all of them together, the Salem Fire Foundation. In November, we had a great group of folks come together in the community that have donated their time to help us set up the Salem Fire Foundation. And its mission really is to help the Salem Fire Department achieve its mission of saving lives. And their primary goal is to raise the cardiac save rate in our community to 65%. Currently, it's at 47 as of 2014. To put that in perspective for you, Oregon's rate statewide is about 37%, and the nation is about 32%. So we're above Oregon's and we're above the nation, but we wish to be the highest in the nation. And the highest in the nation right now is Seattle. They're 63%. That's another 17 or 18 people a year that will be a save. And a save for us is somebody who goes home with no neurological deficits. They go back to their family, back to their job, back to living their life as nothing had happened. So we think that's a real impactful thing to the community, and this foundation is working towards that. So I want to tell you really quickly about two of their projects. The first project is to get more AEDs into the community. And the first phase of that is to equip all the Salem police cars in the community with AEDs. And the second phase is to add another 50 AEDs in the community. So we're going to infuse the community with 110 AEDs. And that's really a starting place for us to get those out into people's hands. And then the second phase is we want to teach every 8th grader in the Salem-Keizer School District CPR every year. There's a lot of logistics that go with that. There's actually some bills in the legislature right now that may require school districts to do that. That would only help us because we could walk in and say, hey, we've got some instructors and we want to help out. So that's the other part of the goal, and that's a long-term sustainability thing. We need to have more people in the community who know CPR, who are comfortable with it, and are willing to help somebody in need. So those are our 4 significant changes. So I want to focus the rest of my presentation on future outlook and some things that are going on in the organization. And I mentioned that this last year, between 2013 and 14, we were able to just barely increase our ability to meet the response standard. We went up 0.9%. We also went up almost 1,500 calls for service. So that's a pretty amazing feat that our firefighters were able to take that kind of workload and still continue to deliver excellent service. So let me tell you about our response standard. 1995, Council adopted a response standard for Priority 1 emergencies. We have about 10,000 of those a year. And that's from the time the person calls until the time that we arrive on scene. We'd like to do that in 5.5 minutes, 85% of the time. We did it 72.7 last year. So from 2012 until 2014, we saw almost a 14% increase in our call volume. And the first quarter of 2015, we're on track to have another 9 or 10% increase in our call volume in 2015. So we're looking at a 23 or 24% increase since 2012. So that's gonna have an impact on that bottom line for the response. I expect that our ability to meet that response percentage to decline probably 2 to 3% over the next year. Another metric that we watch very closely is our resource availability. As the call volume goes up, you can imagine with fixed assets spread throughout the community, they get thinner and thinner. And so you have to be more mindful of where they're at and which calls they're going on. This chart indicates our mutual aid usage from 2010 to 2014, and clearly you can see in 2011 we were using mutual aid about 35 times a year, and about 6 hours a year we had mutual aid companies coming in. Mutual aid company would be Kaiser or Marion County or Jefferson or Turner, Silverton, State, and anybody outside the city who has a mutual aid agreement with us, Polk County, that could respond to the city to help us when we're out of resources. So you can see the number of times that we're out of resources has gone up. That's to be expected when you run more calls. So when you look at 2014, 133 times in a total of 26 hours during that year that we needed mutual aid. The black line indicates the number of minutes that they were in Salem responding to a call, and so that number of minutes went down, so we didn't have to keep them here as long, but the total time went up because we had more calls. And then I want to drill down a little bit and talk about priority 1 calls. So last year we ran 10,110 priority 1 emergency calls. And we define a priority 1 emergency call as a call where it's a structure fire, heart attack, trauma, severe bleeding, somewhere where the person's life is in imminent danger. And the timeliness for us to get there is critical. So this chart, the dark green pie wedge, or most of the pie, I guess, is the amount of times that we were able to get there in 5.5 minutes or less in 2014. So that's meeting the goal. The other pie wedges that are cut off to the side there are the times where number of times we were not able to get there, and we've broken it down in segments of time so you can see the length of time it takes for each segment. So for example, 5.5 minutes, so that's 5 minutes and 31 seconds to 6 minutes. There were 735 times when we were able to get there in that length of time. For 6 to 7 minutes, it was 1,002, and so on as we get up to over 8 minutes. So to put some more perspective to that, because that's just a chart, we try to find a way to communicate so people could better understand how this service translates out into the community. So this is a very colorful map, and you have one of those in your packet as well. This map shows you the service that we were able to deliver in 2014. And each one of these little squares is a quarter-mile grid. And in your packet, there's another map that has a little black number in each square, and that indicates how many calls were in each square, because that's the next question people would ask, well, how many calls are in that square? So this gives us an idea. We do this exercise quarterly throughout the year to see what's changing in the system, how we're able to adapt. So this map represents our ability at 72.7% to respond to incidents in the community. And obviously you can see there are some areas that are red and orange and yellow, and those correspond with the bar of the key on the side. And again, why this is important is when you have a cardiac arrest, hopefully there's somebody there doing CPR on you, which will extend the time to your survivability chances. If no one's doing CPR on you, brain death starts at 6 minutes. So if it takes us 8 minutes to get there, that's not a good outcome. So this map represents the 10,100 calls that we had last year for priority 1. Now remember, we're going to run 20,000 calls in 2015, so there are other calls in the system. This is just our priority 1 calls. These are our most urgent calls. There's another 10,000 calls that require use of resources as well. And the last thing I would say is I would echo what Interim City Manager Casey Duncan said. Our employees are dedicated to delivering the best services that we can with the available resources. And certainly we would want to see these numbers higher, but with the resources we have, I thought it was important for you to have the information that what we expect to see next year is this ability to meet the response standard will probably drop 2 to 3% given the increase in call volume. So I'll move on to EMS Services Fund. So this proposed budget is $875, and there are only 2 FTEs associated with this fund. 2 years ago, we eliminated our EMS billing services, and so we had more people in this fund, but it just became it was not a good business practice to continue that. It wasn't profitable for us, and we were losing money. We were subsidizing other agencies by doing their billing for them. So we elected to get out of that business. So we're down to 2 FTEs. That's our EMS coordinator, and they manage the contract issues with our third party or our public-private ambulance provider, and our medical trainer, who does all of our training for our paramedics and all of our basics in our system. So a couple of significant changes. I just mentioned the ambulance provider. We have just gone through an RFP this summer to start a new ambulance provider transition. Are bringing a new ambulance provider into town. Falk is our new provider. They start July 1st. We're right in the middle of the transition. Things are going smoothly. We don't expect any surprises. We feel this will be transparent to the public, other than the ambulances are going to be a different color. But fire crews will be out there with them, ensuring that the service delivery maintains the high standard that it is right now. So that's going very smoothly. That's a 5-year contract with a renewal period, so up to 10 years on that contract. This is the first year. I'm happy to report that we have, even though the EMS fund is on the watch list still, and I'll get into that in a minute, for the first year in many years, we have been able to very, very closely monitor this budget, and we are going to have a stable fund balance. We're not going to eat into the reserve fund balance to operate this year. So that's the first time in a long time, so that's a good thing. And a couple other things I'll talk about are CARES program. This is another medical program. This is a national program that tracks the recovery and our ability. And this is the program that gives us the number, 47.1% for save rate. And that CARES stands for Cardiac Arrest Registry for Enhanced Survival. Okay, there'll be a test later. I always have a hard time remembering that. I can remember CARES. But it's a good program. We work in conjunction with the hospital, and it helps us, even when we learn about the successes, it also helps us decide what new interventions we may put in place in pre-hospital to have better outcomes at the other end. And it's in coordination with the hospital. It's a great program. The other program is the STEMI program, and this is ST elevation for myocardial infarction, basically heart attack. We have the ability in the field with our life packs, our defibrillator life packs, to do a 12-lead heart rhythm on a patient and tell if they're having a blockage. And call the hospital, and instead of going to the ER and them doing all that over again, they go directly to the cath lab to surgery. And last year we had 54 activations. 47 of those were correct activations, so 87, 88% accurate in the field. They go directly to the cath lab to a surgeon, and national standard is about 90 minutes for door to balloon time or door to operation. And we've seen times in the 25 to 30 minute range here in Salem. So this is a great program. Another program where quality of life, they walk out the door, no deficit, back to their families. We see that as a very important piece of what we do, and in conjunction with the hospital, because really the doctors at the hospital are the ones that are doing the surgery. We're just making sure the patient gets identified early in the process, gets the right care, gets there quickly, and gets into the system. So I just want to quickly go over our EMS fund revenue. We really have really one main revenue source, and that is our ambulance contractor through the contract agreement pays us a payment every quarter. That totals $825,000 a year. $605,000 of that goes into the EMS fund as revenue, and $219,000 goes into general fund. Those dollars are being billed to that provider for dispatch services. And for us to provide advanced life support first response. And so the $219,000 goes into the general fund to help pay for the general fund employees that are providing that response, and the other $600,000 goes into the EMS reserve. We make a small amount of money on Capital Fire Med. That's a subscription program that the private contractor manages for us. The $53,000 really is money, liquidated damages. If the contractor doesn't meet certain contractual requirements or whatever, we can find them liquidated damages. And then the $150,000 is if we treat or transport somebody as the Salem Fire Department, that's about $150,000 a year. Now, the interesting piece of that is it's listed as $150,000, but Medicare, Medicaid write-offs eat up a large portion of that. I think at the end we walk away with maybe $42,000 out of that. So that's our revenue sources for the EMS fund. So while we're balanced, we're $7,000 to the good, but that's not enough to really build the fund, and it's not preparing us for future capital needs. So this is our 82340 is our revenue, and our expense is 81610, and we have a $60,000 contingency, which we typically don't have to dip into. And so, like I said, we're building the fund about $7,000 a year. That's not enough to address future capital needs. Now, I will say that right now, the general fund is not in a position to lose $219,000 either. So we've got, we've got some time here. There's no capital needs that are pressing for this fund in the near 3 to 5 year time window. So we've got some time to figure that out. The last slide I want to show you here is Council Policy C12, which was started in 2009, I believe, right after it was our first, right before our first renewal period with our first contractor. So what that policy basically says is in our reserve fund, we need to have 6 months of operating capital in the unlikely event that our private provider would disappear on us in the middle of the night, which happened 25 years ago. So there's a little history there. So we want to be prepared as an organization at a moment's notice to be able to go back in the business. And we have a plan for that. And this is the money that's going to make that plan happen if it ever becomes an eventuality. So we calculated that out. This year it's $2.8 million that we would need to do that. We have a current ending funding balance of 2.7. So we're about 100,000 below what we need for 6 months of operation. We can still make it happen, minus that 100,000. But that's how tight this fund is moving forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
First of all, was there anyone here from the public who wanted to provide testimony? I don't think so. No one signed up. All right. So, okay, I see a few hands. Bennett, Lewis. I'm going to start with a question. And Mayor Peterson. So I'm looking at your service delivery map.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the area at the north end, especially if you look at the one with the numbers. This is where Station 8 was closed. I'm really, really concerned when I see this. In fact, looking at the numbers in the squares, the one of the orange squares, 125 7 to 8 minute response. That happens to be the largest amount of the 7 to 8 minute response, and I believe that's pretty close to where Chemeketa actually is. This looks, I mean, not having last year's or the last map I've seen, because I've asked about this, and several of us have asked about the areas where we closed a couple of stations. This looks worse to me than what I recall from the past. I know our outlying areas always are going to take longer to respond to, but this is to me, just glaring up there right near that Station 8 area. That's the largest area of red. I didn't do the math. I didn't add up the numbers, but I'm pretty concerned that that's the effect that we've had, the consequences of closing Station 8. So I guess I'm going to say, is there a plan for reopening it, and what will it take to get it back?
The direction for this year's budget was hold the line. So right now, we do not have funds to be able to open that station. I can tell you what it would cost to open that station. That for us to add one engine back, we're at a staffing level where we're so thin that we would have to add, each engine company requires 9 employees to operate it, and we would have to add 3 floaters for vacation relief and sick relief to be able to do it. So we'd have to hire 12 people. for the first station we added back, and 9 people for the second one. So we're talking 21 employees, 2.8 million probably ongoing operation, and we can't do it immediately. It took us 2 years to downsize and close these basically so that we were where we need to be in employees. So for us to go back and rehire, we can hire 10 or 12 at a time. That's all the department can handle. So you could open one and then you'd have to do another academy. And so there's 18 months probably to go back the other direction. But that's what the cost would be. The other thing that I will mention about Station 8, and we'd be happy to provide, we've got maps back to 2011, so we can provide all the sequence so you can see that. The thing that I will tell you about Station 8 is its location, while 25 years ago when the college said, hey, we'd like you to put a fire truck out here, it's outside the city limits. It's not a very good response time because you have to drive slowly through the college, and then you're out on Lancaster, and Lancaster isn't a very good response a traffic lane for us. So the responses out there haven't always been that great with Engine 8. They're better than what you're seeing right now, but that's been a challenge for us, that location.
So I guess I would just say, or I guess I would ask, are you still, so you're not using Station 8 at all? I know for a while there was just some rotation when there was availability, both Station 8 and Station 11. Is that not occurring anymore?
We still, when we have additional staffing, there are a few days a year where we have additional staffing where they're open. I think it's disingenuous to tell people they're open some of the time because there are very few, Station 11, very, very few days, maybe 5 days a year. Station 8's a little bit more than that, but it's hit and miss. So it's, if we have 3 extra people, then we staff Station 8 first. There's been maybe 1 or 2 days in the last 2.5 years where we had nobody on vacation and nobody on sick leave, and we were able to staff Station 11 as well. But I mean, maybe 1 or 2 days. So for all intents and purposes, they're closed. When we have the staffing, we do open them. Certainly, and Station 8 would be the higher priority. If we were to reopen a station, it would be the first one we would reopen.
Okay, and I'll just close by saying, you know, one thing is, and you just explained the challenges of Station 8, just physically, geography, you know, where it is in the college. Much of the neighborhood I live in didn't exist 25 years ago. Maybe half of it didn't exist. So, you know, I would hope that the city, you know, 25 years ago or 30 years, whenever that was open, had some thought about that, because we have other areas of growth, and not just that area, but other areas of our city. I hope we're kind of thinking a little bit more long term, and you know, maybe that's just the one unique kind of outlier because it's in an interesting area. So I hope that we have an opportunity, if we can't open Station 8, what else can we do to address that need? I don't want to belabor the point tonight, but I would love to know what opportunities there might be to address it. I know, we've talked about some things in the past and some different ways of, rotating or whatever, but I am very concerned about that, and I think my constituents would be as well if they saw those numbers.
We have looked at future growth, 20 years from now, where would we put additional station locations. We haven't been public with those because it's really a lot of conjecture. We do have some software programs that we're going to be using next year that allow us to look at predictability and response times, and long term, Station 8 is probably not where it needs to be. And so there's other locations. We've gone as far as looking at property, but that's just, it's too premature to really look at that. But we are looking at those things.
Thank you. Okay, Member Bennett. Questions?
Thank you. I just second Councilor Dickey's concern on that one and add to it 11. But in looking at this map, you can see that it's our entire outlying area. You want to know the safest place to live, it appears to be right downtown again. That's amazing. But in terms of these numbers, what about if you were to show us a map of firefighter injuries as a function of part of the service delivery process? Would it look much like that?
We have begun to look at that with the call volume increases we're experiencing. We've worked very hard to reduce our workers' comp, and we've had some successes there. But we know some of our stations are running 3,600 calls a year. And so they're very busy, and if you're running 18 or 20 calls a shift, so we are looking at that. We're starting to study on that to make sure that we're not seeing, in a 24-hour shift, we're not seeing additional injuries because there isn't adequate resources to be able to handle all those calls. Some of those areas, down the road, you might have 2 engine companies serving that area because of the density of the call volume. That's Station 3 on Lansing is our busiest
Right.
company. But Station 5 is up around 2,700 because Station 11's closed. So they're starting to get in that range where their reliability starts being a little questionable because of subsequent calls. And it's a long ways from Station 1 downtown across the bridge. And we do move Station 1 across the bridge when 5 is out on a call, so we have a closer resource. But now you're playing the, domino game.
Well, it's of real concern, I think, when you see these kinds of call volumes and delays, because somebody's made that run, and it took them over 8 minutes to get there. So I assume up in that north end, they're coming out of Station 3 or
2.
And what I begin to wonder is if somehow you begin to see a mirror image of this happening, that our firefighters, because of the call volumes, and also over in West Salem off of 1, probably south to it, geez, you just look at this thing, that the fatigue would begin to result in injuries and presumably a cost item for, floaters or however, overtime or whatever, that might begin to help us understand what the net impact of the decision we made to close those 2 fire stations was, whether they're in the right location or not, to help us look at that down the road as we think about how to deal with the entire outer city limits area.
Right.
And I think that would be helpful at some future date. Unfortunately, often the only time we see these maps, because we don't ask, it's not because you don't do it, is during the budget cycle. So we're talking to you about money. At the same time, we're looking at service and trying to figure out. I think it'd be really helpful if in the future we could see these maybe a little more often and with a different, those blocks filled with different information. This is really good stuff. It's very helpful to see this. I think it'd be really great for the public to be exposed to it as well, to understand what the impact on fire services has been here, particularly. It isn't fire, it's emergency service. I shouldn't say that as fire service. I should say it as emergency service when you talk about these life-threatening events in people's lives.
And I believe we're posting these quarterly online, these quarterly maps. So we can make sure that link is given to all of you in an email, so you've got that directly to it.
I think that'd be a great standing information report just to help us begin looking at this and understanding what's going on here with emergency services. But thank you for training everybody on how to save their neighbor's life, because it appears to be very, very important in parts of this town right now.
Well, and we've had some success. The Get Air facility had a cardiac arrest where their employees were trained and they had an AED and they saved that gentleman's life. And Pioneer Trust Bank, same type of scenario. I actually got an alert on my phone for the Pioneer Trust Bank at my office, and of course Engine 1 beat me there by a mile, but there was already employees there doing CPR and already defibrillated so it does work. And we just need to get the word out more and get more businesses to have public access AEDs available, and that's what we see in the communities that have the 63% save rates. Is everybody knows CPR, or a lot of people know CPR, and they're willing to do it because they're not afraid of it.
Great. Well, thank you for this information. It's very helpful.
All right, Member Lewis?
Yeah, Chief, I guess I'll start by echoing that I really appreciate the efforts you're making to get the community involved to help, quite frankly, save lives. I can imagine the gratification you'll have or your team will have when you drive up to that house next time and somebody has saved a life that you couldn't get to on time. The couple of questions I have, and this is catch up for me, the 5.5 minute or less response time for the priority 1 calls. Give me again the examples of the fire, heart attack. What else is involved with the priority 1?
Any call where, so we've got a priority call that's used at the dispatch center. So the dispatchers are prioritizing calls as they come in. And this is a national program, and they listen to the information. So if somebody's having serious chest pain, shortness of breath, they may not say they're having a heart attack, but if they're having the symptoms of a heart attack or they're unconscious and somebody else is calling for them, major car wreck where people trapped, they've got a lacerated liver and they've got an hour to get to the hospital, the operating room, and they've got to be extricated out of that car. Structure fires, commercial fires, medical emergencies, diabetic emergencies, you look at all the medical conditions that can be out there. There's a lot of reasons why people need to see a physician or receive some medical intervention quickly to be able to reverse the course that's going on with whatever health condition that is. Now, there are times that people, say something and it doesn't match up with what the card is, and so a lot of times we'll step our emergency up or we'll step it down based on the information that's coming through dispatch. But most of these are incidents where time matters, seconds count when you get there. For example, in a structure fire, if you arrive in 3 minutes, the fire is smaller. It's usually contained to one room, the room of origin. There's less smoke. There's less toxic chemicals. People are more likely to be able to be rescued out of that house if they haven't already self-extricated, versus if you get there in 8 minutes. Most of the structures involved at that point, it's too hot to make entry. Toxic gases are banked down to the floor. Visibility is 0, and anybody who's in that house probably isn't going to make it out alive.
Do you, I know these squares have numbers. Do you categorize these in any way where you could pull them out and say, okay, this number is for, this was actually heart attacks, this was chest pains, this was XYZ?
I'd have to talk to my computer person on that. I believe we could do that. We're doing this map basically by hand right now. We've got some new technology that's going to help us be a lot more efficient with producing these reports. This came out of a desire to be able to, we talk about numbers a lot. We talk about 72%, 75%. What does that really mean? When you look at a map and you see color grids and you know, okay, we're 85th percentile, 5.5 minutes here, and this square's red and it's 8 minutes. That gives you it's more tactile, I guess, and it's easier to understand and to communicate that. So we could drill down. It would take a lot of time to do that right now because we don't have that predictive software. We're getting some predictive software. We've got next year's budget to help us be a little more concise with these kind of reports and get more information.
Yeah, I'm two things. One, I guess they're comments. One, the numbers, and this is to Councilor Dickey's point, the numbers in the northeast quarter there are significant enough that I think it would add some clarity if those numbers could be separated into type of incidents. And secondly, I know the IT department has voiced an offer to help all the departments, so I would encourage you to take them up on that. But it gets to my last question, and that is, I know when I was doing the ride-alongs, the medical calls, the ambulance would show up, and then the fire truck would show up. And a lot of times, the fire trucks have a difficult time because of traffic. So as we're moving towards, and I know you didn't mention this, so I'll speak quietly, as we're moving towards the idea of a bond measure for equipment, are there different types of vehicles that, and I don't want to use the term Batmobile, but are there different types of equipment that could speed the response time up, certainly quicker than a large fire truck, that could help you out?
So two things. First, I want to say we love the IT department and we work very closely with them. They do a lot of good stuff for us. So They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Second, yes, there are different vehicles out there. We have done extensive research in design, and remember that that vehicle has to perform a large variety of operations. It has to carry ladders, it has to carry water, it has to carry a lot of different equipment that we use. It carries medical equipment. And so what my short answer would be, the trucks that we're running now, I believe, are the appropriate trucks to run in our system. Now, having said that, we are currently investigating some technology that will help us with traffic light control to better preempt traffic signals to get traffic flowing in the direction that we're going. We're a couple of years away from really seeing something like that, and that would probably be something we would look at on the next bond. But every traffic signal in town would have to have, the new piece inside of the technology, and then we'd have to put the technology in each fire truck. But the way it works is it's basically XY coordinates, and it's smart enough to know your travel direction, and it turns those lights green so the traffic flows in front of you as you're going, so it speeds up your response. The truth of the matter is we drive 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. That's what we build into our system, maybe slightly faster than that in some instances, but we have to have due regard for public safety. And so that's a big vehicle, and we expect our drivers to be able to bring that vehicle to a stop to avoid a collision. So, and you've all driven in Salem traffic, so you know how fun that can be in a regular car. It's a lot of fun in a big red truck with lights and sirens on it, so it can be pretty exciting at times. So I would say that the system that we have in place, maybe some electronic interventions that would help us get there quicker, but we need to have that toolbox when we get to the scene. Many years before I came to this department, they bought some smaller fire engines. What they found was they didn't last very long, and they were underpowered, and they had trouble getting up the hills. And so there's a lot of components that go into speccing these vehicles out and making sure they can perform in all elements. We've got a lot of hills in town, and so when you're climbing a hill with a truck like that, you got to have enough horsepower and enough torque to do it to get there in a timely fashion.
Mayor Peterson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate the depth that you've gone to help us understand the priority calls and the spread out into the community and the effect of where stations are located and where the population is growing. I noticed that South Salem, way down there at the bottom, also has a number of red squares. I'm wondering, is that down at the area where the new Bonaventure assisted living facility is, and is that is the growth of assisted living facilities and rehab facilities in our community requiring additional support from the fire and EMS?
Bonaventure is to the right of the number 9 triangle, and it's probably the one that has 97 in it. 97 calls in that square on the right side of the map. That's about where Bonaventure is in that area there. Pretty close to that area.
Okay.
So
I don't know.
the short answer to your question is yes, we have residential care facilities in the community and more new residential care facilities coming in, and they do generate calls just like every new residence does. We do work carefully with them and closely with them to make sure that the type of calls they're calling us for are appropriate calls. We want them to call us for a priority 1 emergency if somebody's having a medical emergency. And while we want to help the community out, we're not really here to help people get back, pick people back up. And so we're working with those facilities to make sure that they have the proper staffing, and they've been so far they've been good at working with us. So, the increased call volume that we've seen last year, about 53% of that 1,440 or whatever it was priority 1 emergencies across a wide spectrum. The other ones were, a priority 2 or a priority 3 or a priority 4, which are, we don't worry about, we worry about getting to them, but we don't measure ourselves for the 5.5 minutes for those calls because you're not going to die from a broken ankle. If a tree has blown over and is touching the wires and it's not causing a fire, and we've got all our other resources out, we just stage that call until we have a resource to be able to go deal with it. So Yeah, they do have some impact, but they also bring in, residents to the community. And, I've got one going in behind my house on Orchard Heights, and they haven't started construction yet, but that facility will probably increase the call volume for Station 5. It's just a matter of you put, 300 beds in a facility, and nationally they say each bed usually ends up equating to one call. So you put a 300-bed facility in, you're going to get 300 calls a year out of a facility like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if any cities have required facilities like that to pay some sort of a premium for the service, or to do something like be sure everyone is a member of Capital Fire Med to
I'm not.
offset any of that? I think it'd just be interesting to, I know, don't look at me like that. But I just think it would be interesting to see,
We could certainly look at that. I'm not aware of any communities that are doing that. That I don't know that we would be able to require somebody to be a member of Capital Fire Med. I think that would get into maybe some discrimination if, because you live here, you have to be in Capital Fire Med. But certainly something we can look at.
Okay. My second question has to do with, I really appreciate the priority one call volume pie chart. I remember that when we were looking at the problem of needing to reduce the number of fire stations, we also received a lot of information from you about the calls in terms of which ones were medical and which ones were fire only. Obviously, many fire calls, you're going to have medical issues as well. But of medical calls that did not require, anything related to an actual structural fire, can you provide those to us in, obviously not at this minute, but do you have any information with you about the percentage of calls that are fire calls and the percentage that are for medical?
I do, actually.
Okay. I could tell by the look on your face that you're prepared for this.
I don't have a fancy chart, but I have the numbers for you, and we can certainly prepare something that puts those numbers in front of you. Every year, we do an end-of-the-year summary of the breakdown of pretty much everything you want to know about the fire department. And so let me pull that out here real quick and just take a quick reference to it. In 2014, we had, so total calls, 18,962. In the fire category, we had a total of 417 fires last year. Most of our calls are medical, 14,259 are medical. Hazardous conditions, which can be wire down, fuel spill, 462. Service calls, somebody calls and says, I smell smoke, or, good intent, or they're not sure. We have 1,500 of those a year. False alarms, 1,062. So I'd be happy to provide this report to council or budget committee, and it breaks down number of calls per station. We also track something called reliability percentages for each engine company. So you like to see your reliability percentage in the 90 percentile. What that means is if Station 5 gets a call in Station 5's district, Station 5 is in that district to handle that call. That's one that would meet the reliability standard. If they were on another call and Station 5 gets another call in that district, they're not there. They're not in their station. Someone else has to respond from further away. So we track a lot of different stats. So I'd be happy to provide this to the budget committee. Happy to do that.
With regard to the calls, 417 were fires.
Right.
And I think you said 14,000.
14,259 were EMS related.
14,000.
259.
259.
Were medical aid calls.
Okay. So I'm wondering if you've had any further thoughts about how the response time for the medical calls might be reduced if we were to have more ambulances that were available to respond, maybe if they were placed at more places around the community. Would that then perhaps increase the response time, or at least increase the coverage of where we're seeing so many of the red squares?
What we do now with our deployment for ambulances is, and it'll be the same with the new provider, that they're going to have a few more ambulances in the system at the peak hour of the day, which is 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And there's less ambulances in the system late at night because we're busier during the middle of the day. So they track all those things. We control where they're deployed from. We deploy them between fire stations to have better geographic coverage in the city. But we also, they're bringing in some new software, which we're pretty excited about, which is called Marvelous. So what it does is it looks at a history of the calls, and it helps you post your vehicles where predictably the next call should be. So I don't understand all the technology behind it, but we're going to look at that because we think that might help us be a little more fluid with how our deployment moves. Right now we have a posting location in West Salem and a posting location in North Salem, and that's where they post until they get a call. The dispatchers move them around to, when they get short on resources, there's certain criteria where they go, this is the last post that's staffed. If there's only one left, if there's none left, we're calling for mutual aid. So that, I think, will have some impact. It won't have enough impact to stem the tide of another 1,500 calls next year. And that's what I was trying to relay is we've already seen almost 400 additional calls this first quarter compared to first quarter last year. So that's 1,600 over the year.
Does this new contractor have the ability to add more ambulances if we required that?
So here's,
and I realize that's all part of the contract negotiation, but I mean, if we need them, we need them.
So here's the challenge with that. The ambulance business is a narrow profit margin business. And we put out an RFP for them to provide service to the community based on the county ASA standards for their arrival. And they're the ambulance transport services. Their primary mission isn't to stop the clock. Their primary mission is to provide transport. And if they're there first, to provide advanced life support services. If we were to say we want more ambulances in our system to be able to help stop the clock, we may find that we would not have very many bidders to bid in our system. And
but we might have some.
I don't think you're going to find any that are going to lose money. And that's the challenge. That's the balance. If we get to a point in our system where let's say our medical call volume goes from 14,000 to 17,000, then there's revenue for them to collect there. Because they're going to be going on 3,000 more medical calls. So there are points in the system where we could ask them to add. We're just not at that point yet. So the new company coming in is going to have 9 ambulances at peak, and I don't know what the other, is it 8 at peak now? Oh, they'll have 13 posts around the city, and more ambulances at the peak hour of the day. Now those are just short blocks of time, but if you're busiest during that time, that's when you need to capture those calls and have a better response. So this is again, asking somebody who's here just to add more ambulances. We may find, like I said, we may find ourselves in a position where no one would bid on our system, and then we have to provide the service again.
And so how many ambulances do we have in our fire department?
We have 2 ambulances that are fully in service and can respond at a moment's notice. We have to take an engine company out of service to put the ambulance in service, so that's a trade. But we have 2 that we can instantly put in service. We have a total of 4 ambulances that we could press into service. 2 of them are mothballed because it was costing us, $6,000 to $7,000 a year to keep them in service, and we really weren't using them a lot, so we just took all the equipment out of them and mothballed them, and that's one of the ways we balanced the EMS budget, is to make sure we were using our resources wisely. We still have them, so if we had to put them in service, we could put them in service in a day or 2 and have them up and running. So we run about 1 ambulance transport a day by the department. So that's part of that 150,000 where we treat transport. When the system gets busy and they don't have enough ambulances, or there's, the call volume peaks beyond their capacity, then we step in behind them and take an engine company and run
I
that
see.
call with the medic unit.
I see. So then, are you saying that the ambulances from the company that we're contracting with, if the ambulance were to arrive first at a first priority 1 call, that the employees in that ambulance would be able to stop the clock?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They do stop the clock for us. 30% of the time in our responses, our ambulance provider arrives first, and that stops the clock for a priority 1 call. 70% of the time, the fire department arrives first, and that stops the clock. Anybody that arrives that's an advanced life support or paramedic person, that stops the clock. So that if it's there in 5.5 minutes, that meets the standard. So
But
it does
are
stop
they
the clock.
able to then provide the medical care that stops the emergency or meets the emergency?
Absolutely. They're paramedics. They're staffed with a paramedic and an EMT on every one of their ambulances, and they give if they're there first, they give paramedic care. If we're there first, we give paramedic care. So it's a combination. We work together. So you're not they're not standing there waiting for the fire department to get there to start treating the patient. They start treating the patient immediately, and as do we.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question, and then everybody else is going to get their turn. So my last question has to do with overtime
Yes, ma'am.
on page 44. And I was looking at the actuals for 2013 and 14, and I remember that there was a lot of discussion about overtime, and that your department worked very hard to, excuse me, as did, all of the firefighters were working very hard to reduce overtime, and yet it seems to me now that it's going back up. And in 2014-15, we budgeted, and of course we don't have an actual yet, but we budgeted about, if I'm reading this correctly, about $400,000 more for overtime, and we're ahead of that even in budgeting for 15-16. Can you talk to us about overtime and why did this jump occur?
Rachel was coming up to help me, but I think
All
I
right.
got this. We'll see.
Okay.
I know I got it.
And I can see that from 12-13 to 13-14 that it went up, but we were really working hard at trying to keep it down.
So
Okay.
when we closed the stations, we, with Linda's help, we decided that we didn't want to lay firefighters off. And so we kept firefighters, and we expanded our float pool, which is our firefighters that cover shifts for other people. So we had more people in the float pool those years, so there was less overtime. We still had their personnel costs, and through attrition over 2 years, we have worked our way back down to our even staffing, and our overtime has normalized back to 1.2 or whatever it is. Now, I will tell you that we have worked very diligently on our sick leave usage, and we did a contract change 2 years ago about how sick leave could be used, and since then we have seen a significant decrease, and that's our biggest overtime driver is sick leave, vacation, and those types of leaves where people are gone and we have minimum staffing, we have to replace them, so they're called back on overtime. We've seen a significant reduction in our overtime usage for sick leave. I believe we were down the first year 109 shifts, and we're down an additional 109 shifts of overtime this year just because of the reduction in sick leave. So we're really trying to manage that closely, and that also along with our workers' comp. Our workers' comp rates have dropped dramatically. We were in the $600,000-$700,000 range, and we're in the $250,000-$300,000 range now per year. So
Where do I find sick leave on the list? Or do I?
don't know that it's in the budget.
Is that under?
I don't know that it's in the budget. It would be listed in the budget under overtime, because everything that we replace somebody for ends up being overtime because we have minimum staffing.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I can't tell just by looking at this about that. Okay. And my last question has to do with 2 lines further down, incentives. What are incentives?
So Rachel's going to answer one
Oh,
piece
I'm
of
sorry.
this.
Okay.
She just whispered in my ear that we also budget fringe and PERS in that line item, so that's included, the burdened cost is included in that overtime line item, so that's why it looks bigger than maybe you remember.
And so that's a major driver of the increase in this year?
Versus actual.
Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. What you'll see is what we budget includes PERS, and FICA, Medicare, and as we go through the year, then it costs in that appropriate line item. So when you see the overtime in 13-14, the actual, that's the actual amount we spend in overtime, but then the associated costs are shown in the proper line item. So
I see.
for the actual adopted budget and the proposed budget, the fringe is there. It will roll down
It's just in a
as we
different
get
line
actual.
item.
It's just a budgeting issue.
I get it. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, we have several people who would like to ask questions, so I hope I got everyone. Member Benars?
Let me just start real quickly. Are we not ending tonight at 8 o'clock? Or am I wrong about that?
So,
We still have 3 more budgets to go through and goal setting and
So I, just as a point of order, I know we do have 3 more budgets. I'm told they're fairly short. 5-minute presentations is what I understand. And so we will get through the fire budget, and at that time, we can make a decision if we want to just push through or we want to end. I know the hour is late. We've been here quite a while. So let's go ahead and get through these questions and finish the fire budget, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so I had a series of small questions. Okay. And the first one was the pulse point. I have it up. I was not aware that not only does it call when you were needed for CPR services, but it actually gives you all the calls that the emergency system's going through right now.
Yes.
To this exact second.
Yeah, so if you're in a restaurant downtown and you hear a fire truck go by and you wonder where they're going, you can pull your phone out and you can see we're having a structure fire or heart attack, or it'll tell you.
Further, it'll tell you what engines or ambulances that are going out with it. I just found
very,
it
very handy.
fascinating.
There's another piece of that application that is you can listen to the radio traffic as well. And we had a little glitch with that. We're working through that right now. So probably hopefully the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to also listen to the radio traffic at the call as well, if you're interested in that.
Thank you. You mentioned 152 full-time equivalent.
That's correct.
It looks like 86% of your budget, of your $27 million budget, goes towards personnel.
Yep. I would have said 87 and 13, but I trust you, 86.
86 is, at least that's what I got out of the numbers here. So I'm trying to get them through them quickly, because if each of the other ones are 5 minutes, we're getting in trouble. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was this. You had several, such as Fire Station 7 and 5 as an example, where the square, where it sits in the square, has longer response times. An example would be 7, where you have the 7 to 8 minute, yet there's a fire station right there. Can you kind of explain why that is?
So, like, for example, Station 5 is in a light green square, so
Correct.
that's 5.5 to 6 minutes. So remember, Station 5 is covering all of West Salem, and they run about 2,700 calls a year. So the reliability percentage may be a little lower, and it's just a matter of, at the 85th percentile, they're there. And it might be 5 minutes and 31 seconds, and that's why that square is light green.
Okay, and then the other one, things like, so I live out at Illahee, it's red, but Bailey Ridge is orange. And yet they're the same entrance off of River Road.
Right. So some of the other outliers can be if a crew is out doing hydrant work, or they've been to a medical call out at Illahee, and then another call comes in and they're down the street from it, their response time is going to be faster. So it just depends on where they're at in the location.
And the last thing is just noted because of what Member Dickey had talked about. It would be nice to see Station 11 and Station 8 on this map, even if they're inactive 99% of the time. I don't know exactly where they reside in those, they're out areas that I don't know.
Well, we have maps with them on there. We can certainly put them back on.
Yeah, just a notation of, here's a station. And because what I wanted to see was, well, relative to 8, relative to the red, how close is it to the red, or how close is it to some of the other colors? That
It sits in that open white square, about in the middle of that open square. It sits well into the county. It's quite a ways back in the campus.
Okay.
But we can certainly add those back on.
Okay. I kept it to 3 minutes. That's good.
All right, Member Anderson.
Thank you. This is just fascinating. Like most people, when I was young, I thought I was going to be a fireman, and so it's great to hear this stuff. I want to follow up with Member Bednar's question. I'm looking, about how you've got the different colors closest to the station. I look particularly at number 9, which is in a yellow.
Yep.
And then there was one other that was right next, number 7 is right next to, 3 yellows.
Right.
So is it the same sort of thing, or?
Same type of thing. The triangles for the stations, that may be that they have to go around the block to get into that neighborhood, so the response time is a little longer. Station 9 has a very wide, narrow response district and a pretty big response district. There's a reason why Station 1 is dark green. They have a small district, and they're very compact. There's a lot of people in that square, but they're very compact, and their travel distances are such that they can pretty much get to their whole district in a 4-minute drive time. Station 9 that's not the case. And again, they're in that square you're looking at, there was only 19 calls.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take too many calls that maybe Station 9 was on a call way over here, and Station 6 had to drive from the airport to Station 9, and it was a 9-minute response. That's going to drive that number down in that square.
Thank you.
Member Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick one. Police car with an AED or police car without an AED, do they stop if there's a cardiac arrest next to them? And
Yes.
do they stop the clock?
Our police officers have stopped and helped do CPR. They help us at medical scenes. So, I've talked with the chief of police about, the foundation's goal of putting AEDs in the police cars. It's something they've talked about. To me, it's about getting the tool in the responders' hands. They're already trained how to use an AED. They're already trained in CPR. They just don't have the tool. So
I thought we budgeted for that already. Did we not?
No.
No replacement things for the fire trucks. That was a big deal.
Yeah. So yes, they are another emergency responder out in the community. And
I just didn't know because it said fire, whether or not they counted in there, because you said 70%, fire department 30%.
Yeah. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
But they're in the number.
Yeah, but they're not an ALS responder, so they're not stopping the clock as far as the county standard and our standard is concerned.
Okay.
And I would say the number of times a year that's happening is pretty small. But if they're there, they do help.
Member Bennett.
Never mind.
Okay, all right. So it's not yet 9 o'clock, so let's go ahead and move on, if that's the pleasure of this committee. All right, we have review of information technology.
Madam Mayor and Budget Committee members, I'm Krishna Namburi, the Information Technology Director. With me, I have IT management staff. I would say their names, but I know we are running out of time, so I'm going to keep it short. So tonight, I will be presenting the proposed budget for the IT department, and as well as Fund 355 document services, which is an additional division of the IT department. So the current staffing level of the department is 37 FTE, out of which 6 FTEs are covered by non-general fund departments. The proposed budget includes the gain of 3 positions. 2 of them are new, and 1 is an existing position that has been transferred to IT. 88% of the budget of the new position costs will be covered by the Public Works Department Fund and Building and Safety Fund. So our department has 4 divisions: Systems and Programming, Geographic Information Systems, Network Services, and Administration. So with the significant changes, the department, what we focused on, two main IT strategic goals for the city. Number one is to decrease true software cost of ownership, and number two is to enhance that enterprise system utilization. So the addition of two new positions will help us to reach those two goals. One of the new positions is a limited duration programmer analyst position. This position will be helping us with utility system upgrade. Instead of hiring consultants, the addition of this position will reduce the cost of the upgrade by 68%. The second position is the business analyst. And again, this position will help us to avoid higher system replacement cost in the future and reduce the long-term cost of ownership. In order to reach both these goals, what we have done, we focused this year on in-house application development. We used our existing technical talent, and we actually deployed many community-faced applications and as well as department applications. Just to kind of name few, recently we deployed the police online reporting system, and as well as e-billing and e-payment for the public works. We also deployed the 311 application to the public works, and this application will play a key role to provide 311 services to our residents. We also deployed many new maps, as you can see, like through Salem Maps Online. So these are some of the recent deployments we did. So as you can see, it's pretty exciting time for the IT department. We are busy, and staff are working very hard to deploy many applications. So these are just the few of the major applications we are planning on deploying next year. So email system replacement is one of them. Analysis of utility billing system upgrade is scheduled to begin in July, and this is for Public Works. And we are in the process of redesigning our existing city website to focus on community-centric needs. We are also, and this is scheduled to be deployed early next year, actually, sometime in March 2016. We are also in the process of developing Parks and Rec registration system, and we are actually doing this in-house application development. Through this system, residents will be able to register for programs, league schedules, and make payments online. We are looking at deploying this again early next year, so we have a lot of new systems coming. So all these systems are designed to be mobile friendly. And the other important thing I would like to mention, I know there was some discussion during council goal setting on this, is these systems are designed in a way to create that centralized resident database where we can capture all of the necessary contact information. And then with the permission of the customers, of course, we have to make sure they would like us to kind of share that information or communicate to them. But with permission of from the customers, this data could be used for future communication. So that's kind of pretty exciting. So if you look at all of this, just to kind of put it in one statement, the vision of the IT department is to have, to give access to a single sign-on where customers can log in, and they have access to a dashboard, and the dashboard will list all of the eGov services the city offers. So the customer can go and pick what they want to do and perform those business transactions they would like to do with the city. So the goal is to develop more community-based applications and then add them to the dashboard as part of the eGov services. It has been a great year for IT with innovation, infrastructure changes, and application deployments for the departments and as well as for the community. We truly appreciate the collaboration from different departments, and we are looking forward to continue providing exemplary service to all. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next fund, which is document services. I'll keep it short. Document Services is a division of the Information Technology Department, and it has a total expenditure budget of $1.47 million, and the department FTE is 6.0. The following are the services this division provides: mail and courier services, copy and bindery services, copier fleet management, and design and publishing services. So significant changes for this division is scanning and archiving services demand is expected to increase. And of course, we are constantly, services are evaluated and adjusted on an ongoing basis for the best return on investment and business value. Because of up-to-date copier fleet and increased technical skill set, we are seeing an increase in self-service. The United States Postal Service continues to raise their rates on a yearly basis, and these costs will be passed on to the departments. So the future outlook is, of course, the goal is to maintain that a beginning fund balance of approximately $350,000. And we actually do think the need for hard copy products will reduce over time. And we are always working towards increasing operational efficiencies. And with the future paperless workflows, we predict scanning and archiving services will likely increase over time. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Is there anyone from the public here? I don't see anyone. Okay, I just want to take a moment to thank you for all your work in IT, and I believe it was at the Budget Committee meeting last year sometime when I said, wouldn't it be cool if we had an app for neighborhood associations? And lo and behold, a few months later, Linda Norris gives me a call and says, guess what we have? Because you took that suggestion and put all the smart people who work in IT together and came up with a neighborhood association app. So thank you very, very much. I know you guys have a lot of, you're doing a lot of creative and innovative things. So
yeah, we do have great staff.
That's great. Okay, we are almost at 9 o'clock, so which is fine. If you let's go ahead and finish this budget. Any questions? I saw a couple hands.
I would move a 20-minute extension.
We don't have a time limit.
I thought we had 10 way back when, and we changed it to 9 for the Budget Committee. Is it 10 still?
We will not be going till 10 o'clock. Just so you know. All right, Member Benars.
Thank you. You are doing something that I've been pushing for a very long time, well, 3 years plus the time that prior to being elected here, that I've really wanted, and that was to collect the information, not to abuse it, to use it, to sell it, to do anything, but to communicate. And I was reminded at this last council meeting, or was it the work session, doesn't matter, that the information that the neighborhood associations, all those emails, all those addresses, all those phone numbers, actually don't belong to the city. They belong to the neighborhood association, which is independent of the city of Salem. So how do you propose to solicit either those that were that information or glean that information? How are you going to get all the emails so we can get connected?
So right now with the e-billing and e-payment, when they register for that service, they have to provide email ID and all the contact information. So we did do a soft launch on that application right now, and we will be doing a public outreach sometime in August or September of this year. So what we are planning on doing at some point, whenever we are ready to do that mass communication, we can actually switch on kind of a screen that pops up that says, would you like to subscribe to community emergency alert system, or do you want to subscribe to communication from your counselors? And so we can actually ask those questions to them, and if they select that option, then we are going to capture that information, and then we'll create a database to keep that, and that's the centralized database that will have all the information. So it's going to be not through neighborhood association app, but it is going to be the cities. And of course, we have to take their permission to say they're willing to receive those that communication emails.
So I've been using the utility billing, online billing now since it's commenced, actually, and I really like it. It's been really simple. I would take your comment a step further and say, send me out, give me a document that I can then present to my neighborhood association and say to people, here's the information. The information you provided will be safe and whatever you have in legalese, but I'd be happy in my neighborhood associations to try to glean that information out and get it to you.
Yeah, now I'll get back, yeah.
Just keep it in the back of your mind, because
Sure,
I know it's
yeah.
down the road.
Sure.
Thanks.
And I do think once we go with the public outreach, we can turn on this feature anytime to collect that information. It will be easier. And we're also deploying a community alert system pretty soon. And it's a challenge to get all that information. So this is, I think, is a good way to have that centralized database where we have all that information with us.
Well, I just conclude with saying I'm really impressed with what our IT department, what you have been doing, what others have been doing in that department. I'm really impressed
I
about what's
appreciate
going
it.
on.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Cailloux-White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Krishna. Thanks for coming down. I have a question about incident preparedness. Could you just spend maybe a minute on information security, incident preparedness? Is there incident insurance part of the budget? Somebody hacks in the database, steals the information, credit card numbers for, say, 50,000 citizens. Are you prepared to pay credit monitoring at $100 a pop? Is that covered? Is the city prepared to handle
HR
that?
Director Mina Hansen is here to answer that.
Mina Hansen, I'm the HR Director. That falls under risk management, and part of our purchasing does include some level of internet, cyber security, cyber theft. So we do have coverage for that in our property program. So we do purchase some level of coverage.
I'm thinking, for example, of the Oregon Consumer Identity Theft Protection Act that requires that you notify citizens whose information was compromised. So if you're taking 100,000 citizens and you have to send them a letter at 50 cents a pop, that alone, just the notification alone, not even the credit monitoring, can quickly add up to millions of dollars. That has happened to the Postal Service a couple months ago, has happened to the Department of Employment, has happened to Neiman Marcus, has happened to a lot of organizations. I have reason to believe that you're probably higher on the priority list for some bad guys all over the world. I would love to see that there's some preparedness, including financial, to pay for whatever damage occurs.
And all of those would be a claims-related cost, and we would file a claim against our insurance carrier and ask for reimbursement. We have a $250,000 deductible on that policy, and I think the cyber limit is like $1.5 million, so we do have coverage to some degree.
Thank you.
So just to kind of clarify on that, and I was actually talking to staff about the security of these applications that we are deploying, and the technology we are using for this is same as what banks have been using, and so I feel pretty confident that we are okay, but that's an excellent question.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we have two more budgets to get through, and I think I'm sensing that this committee is getting tired, and we want to make sure that we afford those departments the opportunity to fully present their budget and have questions and good dialogue with us, as well as the public if they come. So I don't know if I need a motion to move those two to another meeting, or I don't know, point of order?
And I actually can't recall. I don't think it's specific in our procedures, but a motion probably, to be on the safe side, we can do a motion and push those to another agenda if we feel that we can't continue this evening.
Okay. Member Berger, did you have something?
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling the next two budgets, item 9 and item 10, to the next meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, well, the nays, raise your hand.
We need a vote of 10 for a motion to pass.
Would the ayes raise your hand, please?
I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is what I count. And we need a vote of 10 to pass a motion.
Okay, but did we necessarily need a motion to table the items?
And I was just flipping through the procedures, trying to find that. And as I said, I don't think it's specifically stated in the procedures.
Dan
Member
Atchison,
Lewis,
City Attorney,
yes.
they're agenda items, so you don't necessarily need a motion to move them forward.
Good, thanks, Dan.
That said, it's up to the committee's discretion.
Okay, so what was the count? I'm sorry.
I think we had 8 people who were in favor.
8 people in favor of tabling?
Of tabling.
And how many in favor of? Continuing? 5, okay. So why don't we let that vote stand? And we will table the next 2.
How many were in favor of, excuse me, I just want clarification. I thought there were 6. I voted to continue tonight.
Okay. 6 voted to continue, 8 voted to table. But we will go ahead and table items 9 and 10. And we are now to item 11, goal-setting policy discussion. And that would be if someone has a wish list item or something. Member Nanki, did you have a question?
No, it's actually a goal-setting thing for future budget sessions to put the 5-minute presentations in front of the 2-hour presentations. If we could at least make note of that for next year. Because we got a lot of staff, and especially if we've tabled it now, they have to come back here again.
Yeah, they wasted their whole evening.
Yeah.
So unfair.
Member Benars?
I appreciate the new way that the budget book has been put together, the list of comparison. This is one of the things that I learned in the very first year that I did this was we worked a lot, not necessarily getting down into the weeds, but looking at comparison from year to year to year. The 2 things that I continuously do when I get these different pages for the different departments is to look at the, I'd like to see both the amount and the percentage between the most recent budget and the proposed budget. It's a real, 2 simple columns to add, but it's my way of basically comparing those 2. If I want to go further back into the weeds, further back in the years and compare, I can, but I don't want to waste a lot of paper. It's just bits of information that really help me not look at the individual items in the expenditures, but keep up there on the top side about the overall. So it's just a recommendation I would like to see.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to place on the wish list 1 additional officer for the downtown team.
Second.
Would you like to address your motion?
Yes, I would. I think that we heard enough discussion this evening, concern about safety downtown and concern about being ready when the bridge opens to, when the Peter Courtney Bridge opens to Minto Brown Island, and the fact that we need time to actually hire and train an additional officer. So I think that placing that fund, the money for an additional downtown officer would be a step in the right direction.
Member Berger?
I appreciate that motion and appreciate the discussion the committee has had on this issue. I'll be supporting the wish list item. I'm not sure if I'll be supporting it later on in the process. I do want to say that it may not be the best allocation of funds to have a police officer, meaning that there'll be issues coming up that may not just be direct crime related. Maybe more park staff is needed to pick up the trash from the homeless who may hang out in the park. And a new officer probably isn't going to do that. It still creates a bit of a safety issue if you have a campsite that isn't cleaned up for 4 weeks right outside of downtown. And so simply looking at just the safety issue with that bridge, I think is a little narrow when I think I'd like the city to look more holistically over the next year at kind of all the issues and how that affects the budget of this bridge. Maybe it's not just a safety police officer, maybe it's more park staff, maybe it's something else in Public Works, or maybe full officer isn't the right position, maybe more of a, sorry, it's late, I can't think of the word, but the community enforcement person is more the correct, or some combination thereof of all of those. Maybe it's one officer, one of this, one of that. So although I'm supporting the motion to look at that and put it on a wish list item, I hope the city will look at kind of the greater issue in more detail and see how maybe the overall budget in several places may need to be affected.
Member Bennett?
I really agree with what you're saying, Richard. I think the thing that I really strongly support the mayor's motion in that I think the description we got of trying to get a police officer on the ground, I have absolutely no doubt one of the things we're going to need down there is at least one. I think it'll be more police officers as this thing progresses. But you're describing also the kind of folks we're going to have as part of the team that deals with, we've all dreamed about this vibrant downtown and talk about it and campaign on it and promise it, and it's just about to hit. And we're going to find out it is not a free proposition, that it also requires some additional resources to really keep it as the high quality downtown we've got. So I think you're hitting right on it. The nice thing about getting a person who can give directions, pick up trash, do those kinds of things is the lead time to getting them from hire to job is not nearly as long as that police officer. That really is a complicated, as I think the chief described. So I really appreciate the mayor getting the ball rolling on this one, because it's going to hit, and we're not going to be ready if we don't get going here pretty quickly.
Member Nanke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we're just getting ready for groundbreaking. We've been concentrating all of our efforts on the upfront. Now we need to actually sit down and say, we got this wonderful thing that's going to be coming in front of us. What the heck are we going to do about it? So with that being said, and knowing the timing, I wouldn't be supportive of using any contingency or ending or working capital if we're starting to use that now, which means we have to cut someone for it to be an actual recurring. So we always have to keep that in mind because we're already losing more working capital than I'd like to see. So I don't have any problem. It's a matter of that trade, and it's this group's job essentially to prioritize that based on a recommendation from the interim city manager.
Member Benjamin?
I echo that sentiment as well, with an additional police officer, if not two. But also, I'd like to look at maybe having graffiti abatement who has a part-time, one full-time, one part-time, make it a full-time during the summer, part-time during the winter kind of option, as well as just graffiti abatement, one police officer. And then, yeah, looking at that park, that it probably needs to be policed somehow in regards to trash and stuff was a very good point Member Berger pointed out.
So graffiti abatement would be a different issue if you wanted to make that motion. You could do that.
Motion. I just thought it was parking lot kind of.
But we have a motion on the floor right now.
Okay.
So we can deal with that, and then if you'd like to make a motion, then you can do that. So I'm going to call for the question. All of those in favor of adding a, could you restate your motion, Mayor?
Yes, my motion was to allocate one more position downtown to the downtown police team.
All right, all of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, Member Benjamin, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, make the part-time employee that we have in regards to graffiti abatement to a full-time. I have one more. Yeah, during the summer.
I think we do.
I think Kim Nelson is full-time right now, and then she has a part-time.
Right.
intern.
Okay, yeah, Chief, could you address the staff?
And just along those lines, I think the best use of resources would be to add seasonal employment or seasonal dollars if the motion passes rather than another employee.
Well, yeah, I don't want to add another one, but right now there's a full-time and a part-time from my understand. And if that's the case, maybe somehow look at a seasonal increase. If it's another seasonal employee, or if it's making that seasonal employee a full-time.
You are absolutely right. There's a one full-time, and I believe the other position is it's an intern who works 20 hours a week for 40 weeks for a total of 800 hours. If you made that person if they were 20 hours for 52 weeks, you'd add about $2,500. If you moved the intern to a full-time position, the cost would go up dramatically because you'd be paying health care and many of those other things. So I think one of the alternatives that we suggested was maybe adding some hours to that part-time person, which would help. And then if you wanted to bring in another part-time person for half a year, that would be about $5,300. And I think that would probably be a more economic way to address some of the issues.
That's what I'm looking at, something like that to bolster for this summer. I'm forecasting a long, hot summer, and things are going to go sideways real quick. In regards to graffiti, I have one other.
So you can make a motion, this would be to put it on the wish list, is that, and then what happens is, at the end, when we make our final recommendation, we have our wish list items, and then this body chooses whether or not they'd like to include that, and where we have found the funding to pay for that.
Okay.
So could you state your motion again?
I move that we add additional hours to the already part-time seasonal employee.
What I might suggest is on the second page of that, the graffiti report that we submitted today as part of the budget package, it lists what it would cost to add 20 more hours to the current intern, and then what it would cost for adding a half-time one. So you might want to take a look at that for your motion.
The very last page of your agenda packet tonight?
Yes, it is the very last page.
Okay, we can.
5340.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I'm reading this correctly, for a total of 52 weeks, for additional 12 weeks of 240 hours per year, would cost $2,500 for a total of $10,000 for the year. It's like, that's 10 tasers.
And is that your motion to put that on the wish list?
Yes.
That was.
Well, it's more of a, a creative way of looking at it. Casey brought up a seasonal person. If we can add additional seasonal, the two people that are there now can be fine just the way they are. Add an additional seasonal person, I think, would be the most cost-effective way to have penetration.
So I just need you to state that in a motion. This is just to put it on the wish list.
I move that we add an additional seasonal graffiti abatement team member.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'm going to call for the question, and this is to the wish list?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Could the nays raise their hand, please? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order? I see we have no public here. Thank you very much for staying with us for this very long meeting, and appreciate all the staff who were here as well. I know you had some late evenings lately, so thank you very much, and we will see you next week.